Chapter 651. Luo Nan still remembered that he had formed a team with Peony to receive a commission to investigate the mutant invasion. But as the investigation went deeper, the mutant invasion turned into a mutant infection. What was said to be an accident became tainted with more and more conspiracies. Because of this, the original client, Trigate Security, retreated. The commission was settled, and there was no reason to investigate further. Luo Nan didn't know what happened next. But a few days ago, he met the excellent idol, Lan Lin, at the Starry Sky Club. He was puzzled, and he learned from He Yuan that the investigation was still ongoing. Her Majesty Empress Wu had arranged for some sort of fishing operation. Not only did he fail to catch the fish, but the water body was polluted, and his family was involved. Luo Nan said that he wanted to find Peony because he wanted Her Majesty Empress Wu to give him a clear explanation. Peony and Her Majesty Empress Wu didn't reply that quickly, but He Yuan came looking for him. Mr. Luo, the situation has escalated. We need to exert ourselves in many ways. Before your configuration analysis is complete, you might as well use your past successful experiences. Successful experiences? In the Municipal Plaza incident, you accurately determined the suspect of the secondary infection, opening up the situation. Right now, we want to continue with this vein. That's true. Luo Nan was stunned for a few seconds before he remembered the situation back then. He remembered that he used the social format of formatting theory as a blueprint. He combined it with the living starry sky model, and he added the description of Gym Master Xiu's root receptacle, root nature, and root trigger to establish a staircase distribution sensing system. He refined the level of judgment between ability users and ordinary people. Because of this, he was able to capture the special position of the secondary infection in the living starry sky. He was able to catch the tail of the clones. It was a pretty good clairvoyance model, the embryonic form. It was called an embryonic form because Luo Nan had only done a collection of inspirations back then. It was a temporary creation. Soon, this sensing model was replaced by the Soul Cape, the large coordinate system, and other more groundbreaking results. Some of the ideas and characteristics were digested and absorbed, but there was no follow-up research and development. A month ago, Luo Nan didn't think that there was anything wrong with this. If there was a better model, he would obviously use it. He just needed to digest and absorb the previous characteristics. But now, with the modification of the virtual brain system and the user manual, the setback in the cloud world, and the guidance of the information his mother left behind, Luo Nan's way of thinking was completely different. There shouldn't be a problem with the train of thought at the time, but it's very important to improve the sensing mode and fill in the details, Mr. Luo? What I mean is, sure, I also want to see how many of these guys are hiding. Speaking of which, as long as we can find other similar fellows of a certain scale, we can basically confirm that this is a conspiracy of a certain force, right? That's right. When the time comes, we will have closer cooperation with the government and the military. Understood. Luo Nan looked at his wristband. The iconic garbled dial was eternally bright. This was his pass to participate in the so-called feast. It was given to him by a middle-level member of Mingtang culture during the Municipal Plaza incident. At that time, he had only treated it as an ordinary clue, but looking at the current situation, there might really be a big fish skewered on it. To catch fish, one needed a large and sturdy net. Let's try using my old train of thought. Luo Nan recalled what he did back at the Municipal Plaza. He used his unique sensing method of the living starry sky to cover the surrounding area of Cloud City Water Village. He took in the life sketches of all living creatures, and he also added the Soul Cloak, a huge cheat. He also took in the entirety of Xia City. The range of perception and the precision of perception weren't a problem. All that was left was to sort and adjust the parameters. Damn, this fragmented, messy, sensory network that allowed people to pass in and out at any time. Is this really my work? Luo Nan's consciousness cruised through the living starry sky, but he felt like he was wearing a rag and dancing on the streets. He seriously doubted whether or not such a sensory network would miss 10 targets when it discovered a target. And this was the result after several rounds of adjustments to the sensing mode. For this kind of problem to occur, it could only mean that his control of the details of the ladder-like distribution design was rotten to the extreme. This kind of thing. Fine. He had to be objective. He had to be calm. Luo Nan strived to remove his intuitive feelings, striving to look at the problem from the perspective of development. He knew that his own sensory network wasn't that bad. But after his cognitive system was continuously patched up and improved, it really hurt his self-esteem to face a work from a month ago. Back then, he had the basic train of thought, but his understanding of configuration was close to nothing. He didn't possess an effective structural awareness, and all the details were too horrible to look at. Now, he had to consider more. Aside from patching up the basic details, he could combine it with the detection module of the Blood Intent Ring's fortress. He could add clairvoyance toward the turbid flow of the mental consciousness, perception toward the trend of danger. All of this could be combined with the large topic of remodeling the structure of his mental senses. Oh, control it. Control it. Luo Nan knocked his head. This was a problem of application. Just 3 or 2 revolutions had turned it into a system construction. Was he thinking too much? Luo Nan debated with himself for quite a while, but he was still driven by some sort of internal motivation. He opened his mouth and said, Sister Yueyin. Mr. Luo, what's the matter? Can you give me a bit of time? Of course. Of course there must be time. Yueyin expressed her understanding. It must be known that of all the powerful people of the mental side in the world, Luo Nan was the only one who was able to capture a secondary target of infection outside the laboratory. No one knew how Luo Nan did it, but the difficulty couldn't have been too low. It was normal for him to have some time to prepare. Luo Nan was indeed prepared, but the amount of work involved far exceeded the scope of the problem of application. He walked to the side and used the external neurons operating interface to open a database file. This file contained the original data records of his mother's many years of research on configuration. There were many categories inside, ranging from basic research time to data calculations for various structural examples, different structural variants, corresponding calculation formulas, and so on. A series of design ideas and drafts could be obtained through the link. It could be said to be a general index of many years of research materials. Luo Nan needed to draw inspiration from these materials. Of course, there was also the instruction manual for the virtual brain system. This concise and comprehensive instruction manual and the enormous database that accompanied it, along with the materials left behind by his mother, presented him with a corner of a grand system. He didn't even have a complete understanding of this system, let alone a grasp of it. For now, he could only practice and hone his skills. For example, right now, he just needed to refer to this tiny corner of the construction level to let him discover just how crude and laughable the results of his previous barbaric growth were. There was no doubt that his mental sensing network needed to undergo a critical adjustment and reconstruction under the configuration system. He needed to wash away the drawbacks brought about by the barbaric growth and the disorderly accumulation. This was a huge project. Luo Nan hadn't even learned it yet. If he rashly exerted his strength, it might be a self-destructive, useless effort. He could only live with the drawbacks and inadequacies for the time being and slowly plan. But then again, he really couldn't tolerate those crude problems that could be seen with a glance. The fuzzy interval is the most important in the ladder distribution structure. I need to set up at least 3 to 4 rounds of filtering. If logic errors appear, then I need to take the initiative to make a judgment. The instruction manual mentioned this. The instruction manual mentioned 5 types of filtering structures, but there are also 2 types in my mother's data collection. The scope of application is a bit narrow, but it can be more rigorous. I should have thought of this when I was studying. I wasn't serious enough. Oh, every level of qualitative change needs to be fine-tuned. The various structures need to take care of each other. I shouldn't do too much for now. Should I try 3 rounds of combinations first? Isn't that a bit too little? A portion of the enormous mental sensing network began to weave and reconstruct under the guidance of Luo Nan's telepathic thoughts. A new configuration was embedded. A portion of the problems could be solved during this time, but new problems would also appear. They needed to be continuously adjusted. Only Luo Nan could do this. Any psychic expert would suffer a lot from tormenting their own mental sensing structure like this. There would be confusion, consumption, and backlash. Luo Nan completely ignored all of this. He just wasn't satisfied. Could the pre-adjusted sensing network be used? It could be used, but it was too crappy to be used. The post-adjusted sensing network could be used, right? It could be used, but it could be optimized a bit more. It could be used later. Luo Nan just sat on the lawn like this, quietly pondering. He didn't know what day and night it was. The people in the project team carefully avoided him for fear of disrupting his train of thought. But there was someone who didn't care about this. A call came in at an unknown time. It was extremely unyielding until Luo Nan connected. Mo Peng immediately shouted, "Why isn't he here yet?" He could hear the clamor of cheers and screams coming from the other side. It was chaotic to the extreme. "What's up?" Mo Ya's performance. "She's just moved back 2 slots. It's about to start. Speaking of which, you should have arrived a long time ago. The Empress Dowager has asked a few times already." The details of the mental sensing network collided with the emotional needs of the reality plane. It created a tragic car accident in Luo Nan's mind. He was a bit stupefied for a time. He subconsciously loosened his control over the embryonic distributed sensing structure, allowing this brand new perceptual structure to radiate and spread out. He locked onto the location of Mo Peng, his uncle, and his aunt half a second later. The straight line distance is only 700 meters. The search speed can be even faster. It would be even better if I added a star mark to my relatives. Thoughts rose and fell one after another. In the end, the emotional aspect took the upper hand. He should give his family an explanation. "I'll be right there." Luo Nan hung up and said to Zhang Yingying beside him, "I'll go over there and take a look first." Zhang Yingying was a bit dizzy. Then the secondary infection target, that. Luo Nan raised his head to look at the projected work area that had yet to disappear. He looked at the 3-dimensional perspective map that had been erased beyond recognition. He clicked on the restore button and restored the refreshing interface. Then he picked up his digital pen and marked anew. Here, and here. There's also Ocean Sky Cloud City. There's also Limestone Water Village. If I expand further, there's a large living area with 4 people gathered together. There's also, he stopped his pen in shock. He looked at the hand-colored circles on the perspective map and realized something in hindsight. That many? The mental sensing network, which had undergone a temporary improvement, continued to expand at this time. Soon, it crossed out of Luo Nan's core network and replaced the interference structure of the soul cloak and the material plane. Since it involved the material plane, the soul cloak needed some time to transform. But as the transformation process continued to advance, detection responses appeared one after another within the mental sensing network. They were distributed to various regions of Xia City. Chapter 652. Where are we? Where are we? It was as if Mo Peng was chanting a curse, completely washing away Luo Nan's inspiration from the mental sensing network. Helpless, Luo Nan could only give up on the idea of continuing to improve it. He sighed and responded, "There's still 100 meters. Can you not be so perfunctory? I'm waiting for you outside the theater. I can see all the way to the elevator from the empty lobby. Who told you that I went through the lobby? You even came through the emergency exit." "I didn't. I went through the backstage and said hi to Mo Ya on the way." "Backstage?" "Yeah, I just happened to have a friend." Luo Nan was now able to speak nonsense as soon as he opened his mouth. TSK. You've become part of the privileged class. You've decayed before you've even matured. You're pretty good at playing at such a young age. The sourness in Mo Peng's words came through the air, but he completed his mental adjustment a second later. "Take 2 private photos backstage and send them over. The kind with material. You know what I mean." Hee hee. Luo Nan hung up the call and then sighed. Zhang Yingying patted his waist from the side. Your acting is too perfunctory. Even if it's an absurd play, there should be some ups and downs in your emotions. But it's not bad. You don't have stage fright. Stage fright? What's there to have stage fright about? I thought you were going to cry and scream and quickly move your entire family away. I never thought that you would be able to chat cheerfully with your cousin. You're calm in the face of a major event. Not bad, not bad. Luo Nan blinked his eyes. This isn't a nuclear cleansing. What's there to move? Let's not even talk about the 10 or 20 people in the vicinity of the large living area. Even if we add in the other areas, including those that have been discovered and those that have yet to be discovered, there are at most 8 to 10,000 people. He paused when he spoke to this point. This was because the Soul Cloak was constantly updating its structure, and it was constantly updating its sensor numbers. Currently, the Xia City region had just achieved full coverage. The number was 20 to 30% more than the estimated number he had reported to He Yueyin. It had already broken through the 13,000 people mark. Since the sensor network was temporarily unable to be improved, Luo Nan had nothing to do. He combined it with the map of Xia City to mark the detailed distribution of these people. Since they were quite scattered, he couldn't see any pattern for the time being. Luo Nan's train of thought was broken after a few twists and turns. He simply forgot what he wanted to say next. Zhang Yingying misunderstood. She smiled and pushed him. Breathe, keep breathing. You don't want to learn the good stuff, but you're just messing around with Bamboo Pole and the others. Your cousin is right. Don't be fooled by his young age, he's already starting to be bad. How do you know if he's bad or not? Zhang Yingying didn't say a word about Bamboo Pole's behavior. She swung her Baihong sword Qi at his head. Bamboo Pole, on the other hand, put his palms together and chanted, Her Majesty Empress Wu, bless and protect you. His expression was that of a fanatical believer. The two of them were laughing and joking. They were quite relaxed, at least on the surface. The problem was that in Luo Nan's eyes, the degree of tension in their bodies and the frequency of activity on the mental plane were completely different from their truly relaxed appearances. According to the concepts he had learned during the basic training, this was an appropriate level of nervousness. It was a reasonable state to maintain when facing an unpredictable and dangerous environment. Zhang Yingying and Bamboo Pole were indeed elites among ability users. They knew how to adapt to the environment and adjust themselves. Luo Nan was on the verge of saying this. He still couldn't get nervous right now. Oh right. Luo Nan finally remembered what he wanted to say before. Though there were over 10,000 suspected patients with primary infection, if they were all weak chickens like Huang Bingjin, then it wouldn't take much effort to get rid of them in one go. Of course, this had to be done before these people were lured and stimulated to slide into the third stage. He had been thinking from a technical point of view. But Zhang Yingying's words made Luo Nan reflect on himself a bit. It seemed that if these words were spoken, the evaluation of being bad at the root would be confirmed. It would be hard to wash his name clean. So he could only swallow these words back into his stomach. He thought about things that were more in line with the ways of the world. For example, how come there's still no news from the branch? Didn't they go coordinate with the military and political departments? It's because of the coordination that there's no news. Zhang Yingying shook her head. The loudest sound is silent. The bigger picture is formless. The bigger picture is rarely heard of. Okay, I randomly added the last sentence, but you should understand the meaning. Luo Nan shook his head honestly. I don't understand. Okay, this was quite in line with a certain person's style. Zhang Yingying didn't mind. She acted as a life mentor for the increasingly immortal teacher Luo. You see, when we met an infected person before, everyone came and went in an extremely lively manner. But when thousands upon thousands of infected people were placed on the table, it was like a pot of boiling soup. A large pot lid was placed on top of them. No matter how turbulent the inside was, not a bit of it could be seen from the outside. It was even quieter than usual. For example, what about those students behind you? Right now, there were only Luo Nan, Bamboo Pole, Zhang Yingying, Qin Ikuan, and Gao De in the passageway leading to the backstage of the theater. The military and political students of the project team were all scattered. They went to various monitoring points according to the established plan. They monitored the members of the grand feast. It just so happened that Luo Nan had circled a few targets. Most of them coincided with the participants of the grand feast. It could be said that there was a focus of monitoring. Everything seemed to go according to plan. It even gave people a sense of accomplishment, as if a major case had been solved and the net was about to be pulled in. This was roughly what the mental state of the military and political students was like when they were in their respective positions. No one inside knew the results of Luo Nan's new round of detection. This was the first thing He Yueyin ordered when she received the numbers from Luo Nan's report. So, these scattered people won't know that there are thousands upon thousands of suspected infected people scattered throughout every corner of Xia City, aside from the targets on their monitoring list. They're in an awkward situation where they can't monitor them. It's hard to control them even if they can monitor them. Controlling them will lead to serious consequences. Luo Nan gaped, but in the end, he didn't say the nonsense that the root of the problem was broken. On the other side, Bamboo Pole opened his mouth as well. His words were a bit more objective. The Fortress Project team isn't considered professional operational personnel. They can only be used as support in this matter. This arrangement is correct. Zhang Yingying immediately retorted, but even the professional operational team hasn't obtained any effective orders yet. Humph, a group of high-level people are still tearing apart. Luckily, Zhang Yingying thought of the fact that there were people like He Yueyin among the so-called high-level. She was sensitive to gender, so she skipped over the indecent words at the last moment. But everyone understood her meaning. Cough. You're not in the operational team. How do you know that there's no operation? It's true that we all know the core secrets, but we're only relying on Boss Luo's power. We aren't truly part of the decision-making layer. For those people, there's quite a market for doing things that don't involve the masses. Chapter 653. Bamboo Pole was a true erudite. He wasn't like Zhang Yingying, who did as she pleased. She fabricated things at will, and the words she quoted all had their origins. He laughed as he explained, the original words are from the Book of Lord Shang. The virtuous do not conform to the common customs. Those who achieve great things do not conspire with the masses. The meaning is that those who achieve great things do not discuss with others too much. This is because foolish people do not understand what is going on after they accomplish something. Wise people can make accurate predictions in advance. If the wise and the foolish conspire together, they will often sink into excessive debate. It will affect their own judgment. Zhang Yingying grunted, "Where's the political correctness?" It actually makes a bit of sense. Luo Nan quite agreed with this theory in his heart. He tried to use his own logic to participate in the discussion. The mental turbid flow is indeed hard to control. The emotions and thoughts of the upper levels are far less solid and stable than the desires of the lower levels. It is extremely easy to be disturbed by external conditions. Zhang Yingying rolled her eyes at him. Are you giving theoretical support to those bureaucrats? Quite the opposite. Bamboo Pole and Luo Nan formed the same camp, but they seemed to be selling private goods. I feel that the President, Her Majesty Empress Wu, Secretary He, and Boss Luo should refer to these words. They should cast off certain burdens and make more wise and far-sighted choices. Hey, my boss and the President are also participating in the meeting over there. Bamboo Pole chuckled twice. Have you seen the minutes of the meeting? Are the opinions of the President and Her Majesty Empress Wu in there? Zhang Yingying was a bit startled, but she saw Bamboo Pole suddenly stop and stand still. His eyes stared straight at her. No, definitely not. Because they won't participate in this sort of low-end, meaningless discussion and schemes. Every word said here is a compromise between right and wrong. This is how human society is. They just don't pay attention to it. On the other hand, secretary, he should be in quite a bit of pain right now. The group of people stopped because of Bamboo Pole. They listened to his speech. The branch, the military, and the government. These three partners each have their own standpoint. They each have their own way of doing things. If you subdivide them further, you can divide them further. They interfere with each other, affect each other, and even conflict with each other. Therefore, right now, his butt was replacing his brain to think. At this time, asking Elder Yu to burn the tortoise shell, asking Gao Tianshi to take possession of it, or asking Mr. Bai to enter his dream would be more reliable. Of course, now that we have Teacher Luo, things are actually easier to do. The ways of the world have changed. If you want to get things done and bypass certain established rules, it is actually unbelievably easy. Zhang Yingying was a little surprised. She clicked her tongue and said, "Bamboo brother, I always thought that you were a hermit. I didn't expect you to be a pushdown, and a very radical one at that. I'm an educator. I believe that the progress, dissemination, rigidity, and substitution of cognition are the key forces that dominate the course of the world." Luo Nan blinked his eyes. He finally recalled the existence of the inner world. They wanted ability users to stand in the light and lead the world. They were the push-the-wall faction. They wanted ability users to stand in the light and dominate the world. There was also the hermit faction. They were willing to maintain the status quo and even pull the distance a bit further. There was also the supremacy faction. Bamboo Pole's self-described education faction sounded like a push-down faction. Luo Nan didn't understand the specifics. He didn't quite understand, and he wasn't willing to go deeper. This sort of political attribute had never entered his logical cognitive system. His experience in the misty maze of the clouds had taught him how dangerous it was to easily step foot into an unfamiliar system. It was the rejection of the rules and laws. According to the Virtual Brains user manual, it could even turn an omnipotent god into a weak and powerless infant. It was enough for him to court disaster in one place. Rather than thinking about those chaotic and unknown domains, it would be better to dig and eat in the 1 acre of land that he was more adept at. The problem was that Luo Nan wanted to stay out of this matter, but Bamboo Pole had his eyes on him. He turned and said, "Boss, there's a term that I really like in your class." "Huh? It's the term that you passed on to Gym Master Show." Luo Nan thought for a moment. "Stealing the heavenly flame?" "That's right. Ever since the birth of humanity, we have faced a vast expanse of the unknown. There have always been genius-type heroes in history, helping ordinary people point out the path forward. Perhaps it was Prometheus, Swearin. Perhaps it was Newton. Perhaps it was Einstein. Perhaps it was the great savior of politics. They were navigators. When the human fleet sailed into and conquered the Blue Sea, some of these heroes became the overlords of the academic community. Some were sacrificed on the high platform. But it doesn't matter. To lead humanity, or at least a portion of humanity, to defy the heavens and change their fate, to step into a new domain, a new era, is an indelible achievement. Boss, as a genius, you have more of this possibility than the vast majority of people in this world. Luo Nan went, He didn't know how to respond. Though Zhang Yingying was secretly pleased to see Luo Nan being praised, she was afraid of blowing him up to the heavens and increasing the pressure. She pushed Bamboo Pole. "Hey, listening to your thoughts, you want to sacrifice Teacher Luo? I'm just saying that when it comes to touching the unknown, Teacher Luo is ahead of the vast majority of people. If we don't rely on him at a time like this, are we supposed to rely on those dregs who don't even know where the danger lies?" "Heh, so you're saying. Hello, Bamboo Pole dregs. Hello, Zhang dregs." Zhang Yingying and Bamboo Pole were both giggling. The two looked like they were arguing, but they weren't really angry. In terms of their standpoints, there was no essential difference between them. Bamboo Pole stopped laughing, but he still persisted in his opinion. "I don't think that a boss who purely pursues law and logic, who doesn't hesitate to drive the turbid flow of people's hearts, will be the final target to be sacrificed." But he doesn't know how to navigate. Halfway through her words, Zhang Yingying suddenly thought of the nickname, Teacher Luo. She choked on the second half of her words. Just the matter of the blood-intent ring fortress had opened up a new situation for the mental side, let alone anything else. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that such a method was navigating, right? She never expected Bamboo Pole to actually express his approval. Even if the boss can see 1 step, 2 steps, or even 5 steps, or 10 steps more than a normal person, there's no guarantee that after 10 steps, it'll be a golden path or a bottomless abyss. Of course, no one in this world can guarantee this. Even if all the extraordinaries are tied together, it still wouldn't be enough. Luo Nan was helpless as he listened to the discussion revolving around him. He himself was unable to get a word in. He didn't understand whether Bamboo Pole's words were praise or advice. Bamboo Pole's words took a turn at this time. But from another perspective, the vast majority of people in this world don't really need others to teach them what to do. What they need is a reliance that comes from their instincts and inertia. It doesn't matter even if they are taught the wrong way. The sea of bitterness is boundless. The road ahead is long. How many people possess the courage and willpower to carve out a path within the boundless unknown? Therefore, the weak follow the old ways, the cowardly seek the gods and Buddha, and the excited pursue fame and fortune. In the end, they are just struggling within the circle drawn by the great men of the thieving heavenly flame. Finally, this circle is still expanding. It's rolling forward. It's going up, down, forward, and backward. The giant wheel of history is nothing more than this. The truly troublesome part is that there are only 1 or 2 people who are able to steer it forward all the way and make few mistakes every 100 or 1,000 years. Luo Nan finally understood why Bamboo Pole liked to delve into the matters of secret orders after listening to Bamboo Pole's unceasing discourse. Little did he know that Bamboo Pole was waiting for him. "Boss, are you interested in going to the thieving heavenly flame?" The corner of Luo Nan's lips twitched. He didn't respond. Bamboo Pole laughed. It must be said that the wheel of history is rolling at a relatively slow speed. Even if 1 or 2 steps are wrong, there is always a chance to correct it. But with the current speed, perhaps 1 wrong step and everything will be over. But the problem is, so what if everything is over? After the age of distortion, how many opportunities do humans, the insignificant insects that lie on the body of the earth, have to realize self-advancement? I'm not afraid of trying. I'm just afraid of being like a headless fly with nowhere to try. Zhang Yingying finally couldn't stand this pessimistic argument. She gasped for breath and moved her mouth and hands. Get the hell out of the way with severe depression. Don't lead this child astray. Bamboo Pole spread his hands, and Zhang Yingying pulled Luo Nan away. Luo Nan didn't say anything, but his thoughts had long since drifted far away. He didn't stay idle while Bamboo Pole was giving his high opinion. Some of Bamboo Pole's words went against Luo Nan's common sense, but many of them coincided with Luo Nan's thoughts. For example, Luo Nan didn't really think much of the military and political department's actions. According to the results of his observations, every minute and second of delay would cause the primordial infected to slip a step closer to the 3rd stage of infection. Making a move early might not be able to save these people from the threat of the distortion, but it would be able to control them at the lowest cost. Then again, Luo Nan didn't report the latest observation data to all parties, including the Xia City branch. Admittedly, there was a selfish desire to protect himself in this, but from another perspective, there was also a very subtle boastful mentality. It's really, really easy to control the situation. I can handle it all by myself. Yes, there are many ways to solve it. The simplest way is also the most crude. It doesn't require any technique at all. Just use a round of siege hammer to knock out and kill the ball. Such a crude method made Luo Nan feel a bit embarrassed just thinking about it. He had considered the more technical ideas, but Bamboo Pole's high opinion, which concerned the psychology of the common people, gave him a new inspiration. He had seen similar discussions in the materials at hand, and he also had a blueprint for a corresponding configuration. Chapter 654. Luo Nan seriously considered how he should approach this new topic. The difficulty of the configuration itself wasn't high according to the requirements he had in mind, but it was very comprehensive. It involved guidance, transformation, matter, spirit, abyss, turbid flow, and many other angles and layers. Every angle and layer needed to have a specific configuration, and they needed to connect well with each other. Oh, it would be a bit troublesome to build it out of thin air, but he had a ready-made reference object at hand. The Blood Soul Temple seemed to have this kind of multi-layered, multi-angle comprehensive structure. It wouldn't hurt to make a high-quality imitation or even directly borrow it. Of course, it wasn't comprehensive to rely on his brain alone. In the end, he would have to write it down. He would first pull out a logical framework, then he would use the information and examples at hand to fill it in and overcome the checkpoints one by one. The faster the better. Unrestrained laughter came from the other end of the passageway just as he was thinking. A group of men and women were walking in the opposite direction. Some of them looked like they had just finished performing. Their makeup had yet to be removed. Some of them clearly had the appearance of dominators and consumers. The two sides brushed past each other in this secret passageway. They basically ignored each other. They all had the calm attitude of someone who was very experienced. But this was only on the surface from Luo Nan's perspective. From the passageway connecting the club and the backstage of the theater, it could be seen that the organizers of the event were really doing everything they could to provide convenience for the so-called rich and famous to find and capture their prey. The people who came and went through this passageway could basically be determined. Luo Nan didn't even need to look at the form of their speech. He could already make an accurate judgment from the direction of the turbid flow of the interwoven minds of these people. Who was truly in heat, who was overflowing with the desires of the lowest rung? Who had ulterior motives, who were engaging in intense high-level mental activities? Of course, there were also those completely numb, walking corpse-like existences. Luo Nan felt that the various men and women in this passageway could be used as a special example of the desires of the lowest rung. He followed the instructions of the virtual brain to carry out material collection and experimental work. A night's worth of work was enough for him to write a short and concise paper. He really was prepared to put effort into this. After all, Moya was in this environment. The group finally reached the end of the passageway. The metal door opened for the second time in a short amount of time after they passed the authorization test. The noisy sounds of people and music on the other side lost their cover. They surged over together with the heat wave and fragrant wind. Coincidentally, a group of dancers in stage makeup walked past. They had probably just come from the stage, as they were all sweaty and relaxed. When they encountered the special people who came from tunnel number 2, some of the more quick-witted ones couldn't help but throw flirtatious glances at them. But in the blink of an eye, they saw the young man in front of them who still had a childish air. The emotions of surprise and amusement piled up and collided with each other, so much so that after they were more than 10 steps away, the sound of laughter rang out again. Ronan raised an eyebrow. Huang Bingjun, the third stage patient, had said a bunch of nonsense in the form of delirium. But there was one point that Luo Nan agreed with: the circle that Moya was in really did have an intense effect of hinting. It made people in and out of the circle think in the most unbearable direction. Luo Nan wanted to stuff every single member of Mingtang culture into a sterilizing cabinet when the high-quality idol, Lan Lin, was exposed. This was to prevent Moya from being placed in a dangerous environment. However, Moya's social circle meant that it was impossible. The turbid flow of the human heart was multicolored. The more dazzling it was, the more turbulent the whirlpool became. Perhaps Luo Nan could isolate the risk of being infected by the mutant, but the turbid river water that entered and exited the human heart was unstoppable. If he couldn't block it, then he would think of a way to control it. He would barely be able to bring it into the new topic. Luo Nan's mind was far too divided. He didn't notice the ice-cold and oppressive gaze behind the group of fragrant beauties until they were far away. The emotions revealed by the gaze were extremely different from those of the frivolous and cheerful girls. It made people feel exceptionally uncomfortable. It wasn't just Luo Nan. Bamboo Pole and the others by his side were baffled as well. They were all people with keen senses. Before the metal door opened, they had already confirmed that there weren't any threats worth paying attention to on this side. Actually, the source of the gaze couldn't be considered dangerous even now. So much so that when their gazes met, the source of the gaze was even more astonished than Luo Nan and the others. Nanster? A young manager named Hai Jing was standing on the side of the corridor not too far away from the metal door. He unconsciously called out to Nanster, so much so that the electronic cigarette in his mouth fell out. Hai Jing was flustered. He managed to protect this electronic cigarette with great difficulty. It seemed that he still had some lingering fear. He lowered his head and bent his waist in a daze for 2 seconds. When he raised his head again, the gloominess and restlessness in the depths of his eyes disappeared along with his previous panic. Nanster, why did you come out here? Brother Hai Jing, what are you doing here? These two completely synchronized sentences made Hai Jing chuckle. Luo Nan just so happened to come over. He stood up straight and used his height advantage to smoothly extend his hand. He wanted to rub Luo Nan's head, just like he did when Luo Nan was young. But in the next second, he felt the pressure of the gazes of the other 4 adult men and women aside from Luo Nan. Among them were people he recognized. Qini Kuan and Gao Da. These two were nominally Luo Nan's fellow students of martial arts, but Hai Jing was Luo Nan's manager. He often came into contact with security companies. After doing this several times, he understood that this was the position of a bodyguard. He chuckled, so it turns out I accidentally got to know a big shot. Hai Jing's extended hand moved slightly as he sighed. He changed his attitude to that of a brother and patted Luo Nan's shoulder. If I knew this would happen, I wouldn't have needed to worry so much about Imoya. You'll definitely be able to handle things better than me. Hai Jing's action was intimate, but the word, you, carried a bit of mockery. He didn't seem like a smooth and slick manager. Instead, he seemed more like the frivolous and rebellious lead singer from many years ago. Luo Nan thought of the gloomy gaze from before. It wasn't directed at him, but Luo Nan could more or less guess where the target was. Wasn't it the metal door that had just been opened and then closed? Though Luo Nan was not present at the scene, he was able to guess a bit about the chaos caused by Shu Yi and the pressure Hai Jing was under. Right now, Hai Jing had most likely figured out the logic behind the situation. That was why he was standing here, rubbing his own emotions. Hai Jing could only rub his own emotions. Whether it was the organizer of the event or Huang Bingjin himself, they weren't people that he, a middle-level employee of an entertainment company, could compete with. Being in this circle meant that he had to endure the crude and direct invasion and mutation of money and power. Disregarding the fleshly body, the distortion of the soul was the most lethal. This was what Luo Nan was able to decipher from Hai Jing's roiling emotions. Luo Nan didn't know whether or not he should rejoice for Hai Jing. Hai Jing was able to feel the pain of his soul and feel hatred because of it. This proved that this former lead singer hadn't been completely mutated. What else could Luo Nan say? He could only ask, is the band doing well? Hai Jing was certain that Luo Nan already knew about the band and even Shu Yi's private matters with these words. Who told Luo Nan to come through the metal door? Hai Jing was calm and collected, at least on the surface. He patted Luo Nan's shoulder once more. They've already entered the preparation area. If you're a bit late, you'll only be able to watch their performance backstage. Go forward from here and turn left at the first exit. You'll see the evacuation passageway. Even though there are people guarding it, it shouldn't be a problem for a big shot like you. Luo Nan went, oh, and Hai Jing pushed his shoulder, indicating for him to hurry up. The problem was that Luo Nan wasn't an ordinary immature youth. He was an ability user who had already awakened. The God gear and the body gear interacted and tempered to form a body and soul structure. Regardless of strength, Luo Nan had already reached or even exceeded the weight of an adult. Hai Jing's push was completely useless. Instead, it gave Luo Nan the desire to continue talking. Brother Hai Jing, there are some things I want to say to you. Hai Jing was a bit startled. Then he laughed. He withdrew his hand and combed the hair on his forehead. What does the big shot want to say? I know that you've done a lot for the Mountain Stream Band, Brother Hai Jing. I know that you have high expectations. Are you comforting me? No. I just want to say that the turbid currents of the human heart tend to diverge, but they don't converge. You built a boat on this river and gave your friends a chance. It's an amazing thing, but why do you need to care about what happens next? Don't tell me that after Prometheus steals the heavenly fire, he still needs to cook the food and serve it to every household? As he spoke, Zhang Yingying placed her hand on her forehead. Luo Nan mainly borrowed Bamboo Pole's argument from before. He made some slight changes to it. His intentions were good, but his argument was mysterious and confusing. Did Hai Jing, who hadn't participated in the previous discussion, have to open his skull to understand it? But what surprised Zhang Yingying was that Hai Jing actually understood after a short moment of stupefaction. He laughed and extended his hands to press down on Luo Nan's shoulders. He moved closer to Luo Nan's ear and whispered, "Actually, I don't need to give everyone a chance. One person is enough to deliver food to the table. I'm afraid I don't like the food you cook. You're just a kid." Hai Jing laughed again. But before he could finish speaking, the music on the theater stage, which was separated by a few walls, was cut off. Just a few seconds later, the rhythmic beat of a drum and the strumming of a guitar rang out at the same time. Then the keyboard cut in, outlining a low and deep tune that extended all the way. Hai Jing sighed, "It's already started. You might be able to hear the chorus if you hurry over." Mo Ya's strangely hoarse voice was drowned out at this moment. It was completely different from her usual bright and lustrous voice. Luo Nan didn't even hear her lyrics clearly. He was just about to listen attentively when the wristband on his wrist vibrated. "Hey, boss." Octopus, who had arrived backstage earlier than them, received a call. He bluntly asked, "Did you guys catch that pharmacist yet?" Luo Nan knew that he was destined to be unable to support his sister today after being interrupted by Octopus. He sighed soundlessly and responded, "Not yet. Didn't you say that we're extracting that person's image data?" Chapter 655. Octopus's side was in chaos. The voices of people were clamorous. "I'm in the preparation area. I suspect there's that guy's scent here. I mean, it's the smell of the processed flowers and plants in the clubhouse." Really? Of course Luo Nan remembered that he was the first to discover this detail. He suspected that the target was a pharmacist because of this. His mind locked onto Octopus's position. Then he opened up the communications sharing so that Zhang Yingying, Bamboo Pole, and the others could receive it. Octopus analyzed a step further. He should have stayed here for quite some time. I mean, he was in a prop room next to the preparation area. But he's already left. Luo Nan's mental senses converged over there. He couldn't see anything for the time being, so he asked, "Can you find the trajectory of that person's movements from the scent? Where did he run off to? It's very strange." He didn't. On the other side, Octopus ignored the subtle gazes of the other performers and backstage staff. He circled inside and outside the door, crouched down, and sniffed. In the end, he shook his head. The scent has no direction. But the shortest route from the clubhouse to backstage is certainly that tunnel. But I didn't discover it when I came over. His tracks were exposed backstage. What does this mean? This means that this fellow has a very strong control over the composition of his drug. He might possess extraordinary power in this aspect. When not in use, he collects it completely. When in use, he disperses it. The society has records of this type. Zhang Yingying followed up. Bamboo Pole followed up. Since there are traces, it means that he's already made his move. Are there any signs of people disappearing nearby? I haven't seen anyone disappearing. The chaos caused by that Electro girl is already exaggerated enough. As for that. Hee. This circle is quite open. Octopus used the Hexier to capture traces of the scene. He shared the photos and images in the mission channel. Look at this pool. I reckon that brother didn't have enough fun in the clubhouse and came here to hunt. Bamboo Pole laughed. Since this is the preparation area, there should be a lot of people, right? That's right. There's a lot of people. It's very exciting. The two laughed and joked as they raced. Luo Nan wasn't interested in these things. He turned to ask Zhang Yingying, "You still haven't gotten the video data?" "Not yet, I'll rush them again." "Wait, they're sending it now." In the end, the professionals arranged by He Yueyin lived up to their names. At the time when they needed the relevant information the most, they completed the task and handed over the relevant images, screenshots, replicas, and so on. The description of the club manager and Chao Shanhai was basically in line with the facts. The young man in the screenshot was indeed tanned and rough, as if he had been exposed to the sun in the wild all year round. He looked quite capable and wild. Luo Nan swept a few glances, then he used the image as a filter to embed it into his own sensing network. The sensory network that covered the entirety of Xia City rippled slightly. It was 100 times more sensitive to relevant information than it was in the past. However, there was no result. Luo Nan took the initiative to control the sensor network. He rotated it 2 more times, focusing his attention on the vicinity of Cloud City Water Village and the large living area, but he was still unable to find the location of his target. That's really strange. Though Luo Nan's senses were more inclined towards the mental plane, he had the soul cloak as an external tool. It used water molecules as a medium to form a highly effective interference effect. Luo Nan's current search on the material plane could be considered to have made up for his shortcomings. But Luo Nan was still unable to find the target even with such breadth and precision. Could it be that the other party was proficient in the ability to change his appearance? Luo Nan couldn't hide anything from Zhang Yingying. She could guess with a few glances. "You didn't find him?" "Not for now." Luo Nan stared at the image of the target. He pondered over it in detail, trying to modify the relevant search criteria, but it was to no avail. Zhang Yingying's eyelashes fluttered twice. "How about we make a conjecture first and narrow down the range a bit?" "Oh, of course." Then he saw Zhang Yingying raise 3 fingers. "Let's not talk about how this fellow is hiding. I think there are 3 possible scenarios based on his logic from the club to the backstage. First, he discovered the danger in the club and wanted to escape through the passageway leading to the backstage. But because of Octopus's discovery and the puddle of blood on the ground, this possibility can basically be eliminated. Second, this fellow didn't have enough fun in the club. He ran backstage to play. Right now he's tossing and turning in some corner or searching for his next prey. But if this is the case, this fellow definitely won't change his appearance. You can catch him in the boss in a matter of minutes, so this possibility can be eliminated. As for the third, Bamboo Pole chuckled and took over the conversation. "Third, this fellow should have gone backstage to play, but we mustered a large force in the club, causing the information to be leaked. He received the news and ran away in fright. This is the most likely scenario." Zhang Yingying nodded in agreement. This can explain the reason for his disguise. But even so, there will certainly be traces left behind. Right now is the time of the performance. Mobility is limited. The performers and backstage personnel also have limited functions. Free people are especially eye-catching. While using response search, we can see the surveillance cameras at every exit. It would be even better if he stayed at the scene. There's still some time before the end of the performance. We have Master Luo. Searching one by one shouldn't be a problem. Bamboo Pole arranged for Octopus. Go collect DNA at the scene. It's a waste not to use the official genetic database. Just compare it and it'll be fine. At the very least, we need to understand the identity of the other side. I'm already doing it. But this will take quite a long time. The fastest comparison technology will take around 3 hours. We can't count on it right now. It's just a bottom line. But speaking of time, it seems we can still mull over it a bit more. Bamboo Pole turned to Luo Nan and spoke softly. "Boss, your attack on the club was too sudden. Huang Bingjin had just finished tossing and turning when you arrived. He is a kindred spirit and an ability user. Unless that pharmacist is dysfunctional, he wouldn't have left too early. Especially with another attack backstage. Even if he sensed danger, he wouldn't have had enough time to evacuate. Yeah, there's also Octopus and Cat Eyes. They're all backstage. This fellow's space of activity should be limited. Bamboo Pole and Zhang Yingying exchanged opinions for a bit. They looked at the 3D perspective map of the building and the surveillance layout. Soon, they settled on a preliminary search plan. Luo Nan didn't speak. He just adjusted the search conditions of his own induction network according to the analysis of the two. Speaking of which, he made adjustments over and over again. There was also the optimization of the staircase distribution of the induction network. There was also research. All sorts of demands were squeezed in front of Luo Nan. Finally, Luo Nan found it a bit difficult to cope. He simply activated the secret skill of overall planning, a mana-consuming skill. This technique that Dean Wan taught him seriously consumed mental and physical strength. It wasn't a long-term plan, but the efficiency of handling matters in a unit of time was undeniable. More importantly, part of the information was given to the subconscious to process because of the timing of the missions. Brain regions integrated across domains more frequently. Often, there would be unexpected surprises like flashes of inspiration. Luo Nan arranged the mission timings. From high to low, they were roughly external response, response search, structural optimization, and research. It must be said that there were many links and details within. They were all interwoven together. Unraveling one would very likely open up the other. It was suitable for organization. When the secret technique of organization was activated, an incorporeal consumption of mental strength replaced the distraction of attention. Let alone anything else, the pressure on Luo Nan's 6 senses suddenly loosened. It became much clearer and sharper. At this time, he finally heard Mo Ya's singing. She should be in the chorus right now. Her voice turned resounding, but it still lacked its usual bright texture. After all, Luo Nan's attention was diverted. He didn't ponder over the words. He just felt a rare exhaustion and weakness in Mo Ya's mood. Luo Nan furrowed his brows. He knew that the matter with Shuei had dealt quite a blow to the band. He was a bit worried, but this matter wasn't important in the end. In this current situation where there were no external dangers or stimulations, his mental senses were still searching for the pharmacist. This occupied the highest priority. It was hard for Luo Nan to use words to clearly and accurately repeat Bamboo Pole and Zhang Yingying's analysis. This was a flaw in his ability to express himself. However, he had absolutely no problem understanding the logic behind the two's words. The two's analysis was the integration and sorting of a series of temporal and spatial conditions. Space and time were tangible objects with a concrete shape within Luo Nan's sensory network. As the conditions became clear one by one, there was a direct and visual marking scale. Then, the corresponding region of the large coordinate system was drawn. Then came the coloring. The coloring could be divided into red, yellow, and green. Fine, they were actually the 3 possibilities of high risk, medium risk, and low risk. These represented the most likely locations for the pharmacist to pass by and hide in. The results of the preliminary analysis made Luo Nan more sensitive to certain regions here. Nanster. Hai Jing had been tossed aside by Luo Nan and the others for a long time. Sometimes they would whisper to each other, and sometimes they would communicate on the psychic wave network. From Hai Jing's perspective, their communication was intermittent and mysterious. He didn't want to get involved and disturb them, but the band was performing right now. The performance on stage should be over soon. I need to go over. Oh, okay, Brother Hai Jing. Luo Nan turned around. Just as he responded, he saw someone turn at the end of the passageway. Luo Nan and the others were at the exit passageway for the performers. Aside from the performers, there was also the transfer of performance equipment and so on. Pushing forward from here was the preparation area. However, it was on the east side of the stage. It just so happened to be opposite the West preparation area where Octopus was located. There was an underground passageway in the middle for dispatch purposes. There was a slight difference from the last wave of fragrant wind beauty. There should be quite a famous star among the performers this time. There were interviews after they left the stage, and they only came back after a song had been delayed. Right now, there were also backstage personnel, recording personnel, assistants, and so on. There was a dark mass of people, and it was quite lively. This was a very normal scene backstage, but Luo Nan's heart stirred for some reason. He sized up the crowd with a few glances and said, "Brother Qin, Brother Gao, did you bring your identification? Let's set up a card." Hai Jing was stunned. Chapter 656. Qin Ikuan and God were both excellent executors. Regardless of whether they truly understood Luo Nan's intentions, they placed the completion of the mission as their top priority. Qin Ikuan raised his hand. "Brother God, you look more like one." God didn't decline. He nodded and reached into his clothes. He took out a pair of sunglasses and wore them on his face. He hid his calm uncle demeanor, making him look grim and serious. He came from a military background. His words and mannerisms were all military. With his resume and image, it was no problem for him to fool an outsider. Plus, Luo Nan's 2 security supervisors had official credentials for the sake of convenience. He wasn't afraid of the SCA checking them. Sure enough, God stood in the middle of the aisle with a cold expression, indicating for the flow of people to stop. The group of people rapidly approaching in the aisle were baffled, but there were still people in the front row who subconsciously obeyed. As long as 2 or 3 people did so, the others couldn't help but be affected. They stopped one after another. "What's going on?" someone in the back asked. A backstage worker tried to go forward and negotiate, but he was stopped by Qin Ikuan just as he stepped out. Qin Ikuan pressed down his eye-catching credentials. "Temporary security check. Please cooperate. We all came in through security checks." "Is this necessary?" The worker was confused. But his words were tantamount to being led into a ditch by Qin Ikuan. After all, the people who came were celebrities. There was an assistant backstage director in charge of guiding them. He saw that the situation was strange, so he walked up with doubt in his eyes. He looked at the group of people in front of him. Aside from Qin Ikuan and God, the men and women didn't look like government employees. There were only 2 of them, and they didn't have any equipment. How were they going to check dozens of people? A bare-handed search? But as an insider, the assistant backstage director felt that Qin Ikuan and God were suspicious no matter how he looked at them. He understood that people who could enter backstage and put on this sort of attitude were definitely not good people. Even if it was a nasty joke, he couldn't come to a conclusion before he understood the situation clearly. He hinted to his assistant to contact the higher-ups while negotiating with Qin Ikuan. "Sir, the rest of the program is almost over. The performance equipment, props, and so on will all come from here. A bunch of people blocking here will seriously interfere with the rest of the program." Qin Ikuan didn't care about this. He understood Luo Nan's intentions in arranging things like this. He simply talked about the situation in the most disgusting way possible. He expressionlessly moved his credentials to the assistant backstage director. "I've received a report that someone is hiding a large amount of poison." As soon as the last word came out, the expressions of many people in the crowd changed. MMP. The backstage director's assistant almost spat on his face. "You're purposely picking on me, aren't you?" Who didn't know that with the atmosphere in the entertainment circle and tonight's special situation, they could easily find a kilogram of pills backstage. "We're all here to make a living. Can you not do this kind of thing that'll ruin our jobs?" At this moment, on the distant stage, the music stopped, and a round of polite applause rang out, followed by the announcer's voice. Perhaps it was because he had said something interesting, but very quickly, the audience burst into laughter. It seemed to be even more enthusiastic than when Moya and the others had finished their performance. Luo Nan couldn't care less about whether Mountain Stream's performance would be a success or not. He looked at the chaotic momentum that was beginning to sprout in front of him. Instead, he became more and more certain of his judgment. Sometimes, the so-called intuition would be more than a step faster than logic. It was only at this moment that Luo Nan was able to understand his underlying train of thought. His psychic sensor network could adjust the time and space scales at any time and display them directly. Because of this, he discovered some possibilities. Octopus discovered that the clue was near the preparation area for the stage performance. If the timing was coincidental and the pharmacist was trapped there, an interesting situation would occur. In order to maintain order, it was a one-way street. At the same time, it was packed to the brim with performers who were about to go on stage. If they went against the flow, it would be very eye-catching. Under normal circumstances, it might not be a big deal, but if Octopus, Cat Eyes, and Raven were all three ability users in the vicinity at the same time, the pharmacist would be unable to grasp the ins and outs of the situation for a while. He might not necessarily have the guts to do so. This left the pharmacist with only two options. One of them rushed onto the stage and jumped into the auditorium, the other passed through the emergency passageway between the two preparation areas backstage. The first possibility was close to zero. The two preparation areas were connected by a passage to the next floor. From time to time, there would be people shuttling back and forth according to the stage arrangement. It was not surprising that there were one or two more people. Then, it was very likely that the pharmacist would pass through the emergency passageway and leave through the exit passage here. Of course, this was just one possibility. Perhaps Octopus wasn't able to block it in time and the pharmacist had already left. Or perhaps the pharmacist had already passed through the passageway and successfully escaped before the group of fragrant beauties arrived. Or perhaps Luo Nan and the others were listening to Bamboo Pole's speech. But then again, if these conditions of time and space were fulfilled at the same time, then the situation would be very interesting. It was extremely likely that the pharmacist would mix in with the performers in front or behind them, bumping into Luo Nan and the others. The probability might not look too good, but there was nothing to do right now. Why not give it a try? Luo Nan was considering how to create a small stimulation to lock onto a possible target. His wristband vibrated once more, this time from Mo Peng. Nanster, what the hell are you doing? The Empress Dowager has already asked 800 times. Me and brother Hai Jing are backstage. This location is pretty good. We can listen from start to finish. You're in the theater, yet you're making a call. Pay attention to your manners. Luo Nan casually dealt with Mo Peng and hung up. He suddenly thought of something at this time. Hai Jing was also an industry insider. He had been backstage for so long. It seemed that he could be of help. So Luo Nan asked casually, Brother Hai Jing, you recognize all of these people? This greeting caused many people to turn their gazes to Hai Jing's face. Hai Jing was innocently thrown into the maelstrom. He was also stunned. Hai Jing. From Mingtang culture? Yes, Director Mao. I'm the assistant director. The assistant director with the surname Mao didn't appreciate Hai Jing's kindness at all. His heart was stifled and he had nowhere to vent. He finally saw someone who could hold it in. He couldn't control the evil fire in his belly. Hai Jing, what's going on here? You know them? You. Halfway through his words, Assistant Mao suddenly seemed to understand something. His face suddenly turned green. Under the push of his emotions, he already began to speak indiscriminately. King called them here? What the hell are you doing? I still haven't settled the debt with you from before. Your Mingtang culture doesn't want to mingle in the circle anymore, right? The line of people's gazes focused on Hai Jing in an instant. It was as if thousands of arrows had pierced through Hai Jing's heart. This kind of scene was not something that any agent in the industry could endure. Hai Jing was a man. He didn't collapse. He just furrowed his brows and wanted to open his mouth to explain a few words. At this time, Luo Nan raised his hand to stop him. It could be said that stimulation was a very necessary method. Luo Nan was able to find subtle traces from the direction of the turbid mental flow once a person's mental state underwent a change. Luo Nan didn't know the limits of an ability user's concealment. Just by looking at the data, many people could restrain the traces of their own life to the minimum. Their breathing, heartbeat, and even body temperature could all be concealed flawlessly. However, he believed that such a situation practically didn't exist on the mental plane. Unless the target truly had no thoughts or thoughts, they would often press down on one end and stick up on the other. Fine. Even if the target truly had no thoughts or thoughts, wouldn't it be more eye-catching in the surging turbid currents of the human heart? Luo Nan had discovered earlier that there were people in the team who had a guilty conscience when he let Qin Yikuan and Gao De block the way and inspect them. Strictly speaking, these people were all suspicious, but there were far too many of them. It wasn't easy to lock onto a specific person. But now, a new round of stimulation was formed. The two reactions were compared, and interesting details appeared. Luo Nan's gaze swept through the crowd, hoping to further narrow down the scope. He could ignore the gazes of others, but the problem was that Hai Jing was almost at his limit after resisting for so long. Nanster, don't harm me. It's okay. Luo Nan transferred all of his mental energy to the minute changes in the turbid currents of the mental. His reply was quite insincere. Hai Jing squeezed out words from between his teeth. Mo Ya and the others have already left the stage. They're going to pass through here. Oh, I know. I just so happen to have some things that require Sister Shui's help. Speaking of which, Brother Hai Jing, you've really drawn quite a bit of hatred. Are you going to become the public enemy of the industry? I'm in the same line of work as you. I hate it too. I could clearly go back and get high on drugs, but then I was suddenly interrupted. Anyone would be annoyed. Zhang Yingyin was all smiles as she joined in on the fun. Her bright eyes roamed as she spoke. She imitated Luo Nan in searching for a target in the crowd, but she didn't find any clues. Luo Nan quite approved of her logic. Though it's a misunderstanding, the hatred is quite intense. It has a clear target. In this way, Brother Hai Jing, the only one who can let you go is either a Buddha or a demon. The group of people from Assistant Mao all looked at each other in dismay. They practically believed that Luo Nan was a mental patient. Assistant Mao also discovered that the one leading the group was actually Luo Nan, this immature kid. Motherfucker. The younger one was, the more dangerous it was in this environment. Perhaps he was a big shot. Assistant Mao still wanted to try and communicate with Luo Nan, but his immediate superior, the backstage director, called him at this time. The moment he opened his mouth, he rained curses on him. What the hell are you doing over there? Don't you know that the next program is going to start from the East Preparation Area? It's a fucking intestinal obstruction right now. Are you going to use your fingers to dig it out? Director, it's like this. Hey, what's going on over here? A hoarse voice rang out from the back of the passageway. Luo Nan had a vague impression of it. It was the voice of Mountain Creek's keyboardist, Ma Lu. It sounded like he was forcefully raising his voice. His mood was quite gloomy. Actually, the mood of the entire band, from Moya down, was quite terrible. They hurriedly got off the stage and left in a hurry. They just happened to pass through this passageway, blocking the performers in front of them. Luo Nan subconsciously wanted to greet them over there, but a subtle change appeared in the direction of the turbid mental flow. It seemed to have arisen precisely because of the arrival of Moya and the others. Over here. Huh. Luo Nan had practically locked onto his target, but the other party's conditions on the mental plane were compatible. He was unable to suppress the lack and contradiction of some key judgment conditions. Some of them were even completely unreasonable. No, wait a minute. It was precisely because they were completely unreasonable that he couldn't find them. Chapter 657. The gazes of several dozen people shifted in the direction Luo Nan pointed. In the end, they focused on a spot at the back of the crowd. But due to the angle of their line of sight, they were unable to figure out who Luo Nan was pointing at. There were 3 or 4 people in that area. There were backstage staff wearing work jackets. There were cameramen holding equipment. There were office women wearing white shirts. There were also strong bodyguards. They suddenly became the focal point of their gazes. Different yet complex expressions appeared on their faces. Stiff, doubtful, lifeless, and so on. Zhang Yingying felt a bit dizzy. She took advantage of Hai Jing's silence to move closer to Luo Nan and whispered, "Hold on. Which one are you pointing at? Are you sure? Their age, body shape, appearance, and even their gender don't match. Also, none of them are ability users." Luo Nan didn't respond to this topic. He continued to firmly point forward, waiting for Hai Jing's reply. The problem was that Hai Jing was stupefied. He really didn't understand which one Luo Nan was pointing at. His gaze swept across the faces of the candidates in that area. All he saw was stiffness and indifference. How could there be any kindness to speak of? In the end, Hai Jing's thoughts were separated from Luo Nan's by a layer. Zhang Yingying's reaction was much faster. She didn't understand why Luo Nan was so determined that the target was among these people. But since the boss had already determined the direction, she needed to create the best conditions as a subordinate. "Mr. Hai Jing, is it this troublesome to recognize someone? Don't you recognize them?" There were several hundred people backstage. How could he recognize all of them? It was already pretty good if he could recognize a few familiar faces. "I don't recognize them. It's strange if I don't recognize them. We're all in the same line. How could I not recognize them? Could it be that a suspicious person has mixed in?" Zhang Yingying just needed a reason. Who cared if it was full of holes? She snapped her fingers, displaying a certain attitude. She turned to face the backstage assistant director with a smile. The backstage management of the New Year's Eve party should be very strict. This Director Mao. Director's assistant. The correction this time was a typical low profile. "Okay, Assistant Mao. Your various positions, groups, and divisions of labor should be very detailed. For example, the prop team, makeup team, and so on. Do you want everyone to identify them?" Assistant Mao was not a fool. Facing Zhang Yingying's confident attitude, he already understood that this was not some random drug search operation, but a more specific goal. Since it had nothing to do with him, he was more than happy to cooperate. He turned around and quickly recognized his subordinate. "That's the one in the jacket. He's little Zhou from the guidance team. I know him." As for the cameraman, with him taking the lead, there were many people here. Soon, someone said, "That's Master Lu from Failing Entertainment." The celebrity's assistant also said in a low voice, "That tall man is our studio's bodyguard, his surname is Xiao." In just 3 to 5 seconds, 3 of the 4 people had been claimed. As for the remaining woman in the white shirt, no one said anything for her. At this moment, many people exchanged glances. Who is she? Do you know her? Which department? Could it be? The scene that had been filled with voices suddenly cooled down, and the expressions of the surrounding people began to change again. Their gazes also focused on that person. The woman in the white shirt appeared to be middle-aged. Her skin was a bit rough, her lips were thin, and her eyes were thin. She had a head full of short hair. She couldn't be considered good-looking, but she had a very capable appearance. Her neat white shirt was really too warm. At first glance, it wouldn't be a problem to say that she was a backstage staff, an assistant, and the like. It would also be fine to say that she was a member of the interview team. In reality, she wasn't on either side. Zhang Yingying took a deep breath and retreated to Luo Nan's side. Eliminate the impossible. What's left is the answer. But this is a woman. That's right. But the one we're looking for is a skinny, wild young man with dark skin. Yeah. I also want to know what's going on. Luo Nan lowered his hand after the preliminary screening ended, but his gaze became even more direct. Under his gaze, the woman in the white shirt had a gloomy expression. She was strangely calm. Luo Nan let out a breath. Maybe I'm looking for the wrong person, but this person's mood is the most worthy of suspicion. It wasn't just Luo Nan. The woman in the white shirt's treacherous calm state made a group of people who worked hard in the entertainment circle fearful. Most people could see that there was a problem. There was no need for a reminder. The people who were nearby all retreated back one by one. Some people bumped into the prop team behind them, who were transferring the equipment. And the prop team blocked the path of the people behind them, causing the blockage to become even more serious. From Luo Nan's angle, he couldn't see the members of the Mountain Creek band just by relying on his eyes. Okay. Maybe she isn't the target, but she's certainly a suspect. Zhang Yingying's attitude proved that the group had already reached a consensus. Qi Nikuan and Gao De didn't go forward after discovering the suspect. Instead, they retreated. Their mission was to make Luo Nan's personal safety their number one priority. All of this was meaningless to Luo Nan. He stared at the target and restarted the examination. He abandoned the highest priority criteria of being an ability user and male. He just started with the most basic structure of the body and soul. He started with the subtle mysteries of the root receptacle, root nature, and root trigger. He scanned the woman in the white shirt in front of him from head to toe. Zhang Yingying spoke in his place. She took the initiative to make contact with the target. Okay. Now is the time for questioning. This lady, who are you? The expression of the woman in the white shirt was cold and solemn. She didn't look like she was going to cooperate. But she still opened her mouth a few seconds later. As you can see, I'm a non-staff member who entered backstage. You're quite frank. Zhang Yingying was a bit surprised. It's not difficult to find 10 or 20 people like me backstage. The corner of the woman in the white shirt's lips slightly twisted. She didn't conceal her nasty mood at all. You guys caught me hiding drugs, but I don't have anything on me. So your questions are completely unreasonable. Zhang Yingying didn't care about this at all. She asked again, your identity? What's your name? The woman in the white shirt spoke to herself. If you guys are public law enforcement personnel, I hope that a lawyer will appear. If you guys aren't, then I have no obligation to answer. Bamboo Pole had been observing from the side for a long time. His gaze swept across the large empty space around the woman in the white shirt and the surrounding flow of people. He walked forward and whispered to Luo Nan. Boss, look at this place. Luo Nan understood. The examination is over. Everyone else can leave except for this person. Assistant Mao had been waiting for these words for a long time, but he was a bit dizzy when he heard them. He subconsciously said, don't mess around too much. Before Assistant Mao could finish speaking, God expressionlessly stepped forward to direct the flow of people through the corridor. Even so, 99% of Luo Nan's energy, including himself, was concentrated on the woman in the white shirt. They were to prevent her from suddenly launching an attack. The woman in the white shirt didn't move at all. She was simply like an outsider, watching everything with indifference. It was too strange. From front to back, from left to right, this person seemed to be a normal middle-aged woman without any special characteristics of an ability user. But just looking at her attitude made people vigilant. The flow of people rushed past. Celebrities, executives, and staff members were all in a hurry. The prop car rumbled past, and behind them was the Mountain Stream Band. Old Hai? Luo Nan? They were separated by the crowd and the prop car. They didn't understand the situation in front of them at all. They walked over with great difficulty and saw familiar faces. Everyone greeted them, but practically no one responded to Luo Nan. If it was possible, Luo Nan didn't want Imoya and the others to pass through here. But now wasn't the time for selfish calculations. He didn't say a word. He let every member of the Mountain Stream Band display their truest selves. Actually, this was the most dangerous moment, but it was also the most likely moment to confirm the true nature of the situation. as long as the opponent made a move. The woman in the white shirt still didn't respond. Her body and soul structure were in the category of a normal person. She posed no threat at all. The atmosphere in the hallway was so serious that a quick-witted person like Emoya had already sensed that something was wrong. And Cat Eyes, who had always been by her side, had long since switched positions. When she passed by, she just happened to be in between Emoya and the woman in the white shirt. She blocked any possible route of attack, and at the same time, she grabbed Emoya's arm with one hand and quickly passed. Luo Nan nodded towards Cat Eyes. He didn't see Rui Wen's figure, but he knew that the little girl was nearby. She would immediately make a move if something unforeseen happened. This made Luo Nan feel more at ease. And at this time, his mind stirred. Aside from the woman in the white shirt who had already become the focus of attention, he divided a strand of his attention to another sensitive person. Just like before, this person's hair hung down to cover half of her face. She tried to quickly pass through, but Luo Nan suddenly extended his hand and pulled her over. "What are you doing?" A cry of alarm came from the hallway. Shu Yi, who was being pulled, instinctively flung her hands and struggled, but she was unable to break free from Luo Nan's iron clamp-like grip. Compared to when she was at the clubhouse, Shu Yi was wearing a black overcoat that covered her face. It more or less hid some of the emotions on her face, giving her the air of a celebrity. But people could still see that her face was terrifyingly pale. Even though she was wearing heavy makeup, even though she was struggling fiercely, not a bit of blood could be seen on her face. The incident happened so suddenly that even Zhang Yingying and Bamboo Pole didn't expect Luo Nan to reach out and grab Shu Yi. The other members of the Mountain Stream Band all looked back in shock. They stopped one after another. The focus of the incident seemed to have shifted over. Luo Nan locked most of his attention onto the woman in the white shirt. He didn't even look at the woman struggling in fear in his hand. He just spoke in a calm voice, "Sister Shu Yi. You need to help me out. I don't want to. Let go of me. Let go of me." Shu Yi wasn't cooperative at all. She was terrified. She screamed hoarsely, so much so that Assistant Mao's group, who had retreated quite a distance away, looked back with curiosity. Chapter 658. The current situation was urgent. There was no time to waste. Luo Nan felt that what he had done was right and proper. He had even spoken quite a bit of nonsense out of consideration for Emoya's feelings. But this scene was a bit too impactful in the eyes of those who were familiar with it. Emoya, who had almost reached the end of the corridor, stopped and turned around. She frowned and looked over. But Cat Eyes added strength to the crook of her arm at this time. "Miss Emoya, you can't possibly not trust your little brother, right?" "Not at all." Emoya's reply was quite calm. She had been a bit prepared for this scene ever since she found out that Luo Nan was participating in the inner world circle. Her mind occasionally drifted, but she never expected it to happen so quickly and so suddenly. She looked at Luo Nan, but Luo Nan was still staring at the white-shirted woman in the corridor right now. He didn't react to Emoya's gaze at all. Hai Jing was suddenly enlightened at this time. He played his role as a manager and stepped forward bravely, blocking the other band members who didn't understand the situation. "Let's go back to the lounge first. Shu Yi is fine. I'm fine. I'm fine. Hai Jing, Emoya, save me." Shu Yi didn't know why, but she was extremely afraid of Luo Nan. She struggled with all her might to call for help, so much so that her black mask was about to fall off. But the more she yelled, the more complicated the emotions of the other band members became. So much so that after a few glances, they left under Hai Jing's persuasion. Emoya, who was further ahead, turned her head to look. But in the end, she still walked away with the other band members. A band like this is probably done for. At the very least, it needs to be replaced. Though Luo Nan didn't turn his head, he clearly understood the reactions of Emoya and the others. He stared at the distressed woman in front of him. "Sister Shu Yi, you've already messed up something. I hope you can make up for it now. It had to be said that Luo Nan's eloquence was truly terrible. Shu Yi saw her companions leave heartlessly and listened to Luo Nan's persuasion. Not only did she not ease her emotions, she became even more stimulated. She even temporarily suppressed her fear. She completely threw away her celebrity demeanor and directly spat out, "Fuck you. What the hell do you know, a kid who can cry out in pain when he masturbates?" Zhang Yingying let out a stifled laugh. But she instantly realized that she might have touched Luo Nan's reverse scale. She hurriedly turned to stare at the white-shirted woman and put on a solemn expression. Luo Nan's eyelids blinked, but that was all. In his view, Shu Yi's deranged posture and words were only the materialization of the turbid emotional flow that had already gone out of control. There was nothing new about it. The only thing that needed to be resolved was its uncooperative attitude. Luo Nan thought for a bit, then used one hand to control the water. His other hand reached out and pointed at the woman's cheek. Before his fingertips had even touched the real thing, the already riddled mental barrier of the water will had completely collapsed. Her body went rigid. She stared blankly as Luo Nan's finger pierced over. Luo Nan pinched the frame of his glasses and took off the crooked black mask. Without the lens, Shu Yi's courage was dampened, and his strength to struggle was almost completely gone. Tears gushed out uncontrollably, ruining her makeup. She looked pathetic and pitiful. Luo Nan's mind was still unperturbed. He just followed his own rhythm and looked straight into her eyes. "Sister Shui, I ask. You answer. When you were with Huang Bingjin, what was his friend like?" I. Shu Yi's mind was stupefied. It was a mess, and there was an uncontrollable surge of shame and anger. She didn't know how to respond for a time. Seeing her like this, Luo Nan asked in more detail, was it a man or a woman? Emotions were like a spring. Shu Yi was forced into a corner, but she was still enraged by this deliberately humiliating question. Her last bit of irritable energy burst forth, and she even forgot her fear for the time being. Nonsense. It was a man. 2 men and a woman. Shu Yi had enough. She laughed out loud and simply answered, "That's right. Do you want to come as well?" "I don't mind as long as the money is in place." Luo Nan's face was calm and without a ripple. He extended his hand to point at the white-shirted woman. "Then this one in front of you. Do you know her?" Shu Yi didn't even look at him. She answered coldly, "I don't know her." "Really? Are you sure?" Why wouldn't I be sure? I said I don't know her. I've never seen her. I'm not like your sister. I have no interest in women." For 2 seconds, everyone was silent. Shu Yi was even more so. This was because in that instant, the cold glint in Luo Nan's eyes seemed to have chopped her into 2. She nearly thought that she was dead. She forgot to breathe. She couldn't even shift her gaze. The pair of long legs that she was so proud of seemed to have lost their support. They trembled uncontrollably and slowly went limp until her knees touched the ground. Then she lost all strength and fell limply to the ground. Luo Nan loosened his hand and shut his mouth in silence. Even the faint sound of Shu Yi falling to the ground could be heard clearly in the hallway right now. It was Zhang Yingying who coughed, forcefully breaking the tense and awkward atmosphere. "In a moment, someone will have to pass through here. If you want to interrogate them, it would be best if we change locations. I think that passageway number 2 is pretty good. Very few people pass through it, and it has independent privileges. Let's seal off the privileges and prevent people from entering and exiting. Of course, we can also directly take the person away. If there are no other suspects in the background." To put it bluntly, even though the white-shirted woman was the most suspicious candidate right now, Zhang Yingying still found it hard to believe that this person had a deeply overlapping relationship with the male pharmacist. From her perspective, the search in the background could not be stopped. Perhaps this woman had specifically jumped out to disturb their line of sight? Okay. This was Luo Nan's response. He didn't say whether or not he could do it. It was impossible to see what sort of effect Shui had on Luo Nan when she had blurted out the shocking information. He just entered the mission channel of the Psychic Wave Network and found Octopus, who was still searching for clues in the Western Preparation area. Bro Octopus, there's something I want to ask you. What a coincidence. I just so happen to have something I want to tell you. You go first. Okay. I want to ask if you discovered any male secretions during the trace sampling over there? Bro Octopus. Hiss. The angle is strange. But you're amazing. I wanted to ask you about this. I just transferred portable equipment over here. I did a rough inspection. Only female secretions were detected. I didn't discover any sperm cells or other relevant components. Hee hee. If I were to review it now, I would think that this was a passionate and pleasing scene, one that the masses of men would love to see and hear. Speaking of which, how did you guess this? Bamboo Pole, Zhang Yingying, and the others were able to hear Octopus's incessant chatter due to the shared communication channel. Disregarding the awkwardness that Octopus had injected into the current atmosphere for the time being, this new conclusion alone was enough to make everyone's gazes focus on the middle-aged woman wearing the eye-catching white shirt. Chapter 659. It didn't matter if he couldn't figure it out for now. It was good to have a direction. So far, Bamboo Pole had not been able to find a direct connection between the woman in white and the pharmacist, but it was not impossible to look for evidence. Right now, we need to investigate all of this woman's video data. How did she get backstage? What did she do backstage? Does her image match up with that male pharmacist's? Also, give Miss Shui a physical examination. Extract the relevant components. It's fine as long as she cooperates. We're already investigating the rest. As a professional intelligence officer, Zhang Yingying wasn't just responsible for supporting Luo Nan. We'll lock the time frame to after some people are messing around in the club. It won't even take an hour. We'll be able to get information soon. As she spoke, Zhang Yingying gave the white-shirt woman some psychological pressure. Hey, our branch has a lenient policy for those who confess. We don't have the habit of bickering with lawyers. Are you sure you want to be stubborn to the end? The white-shirt woman's face remained cold and gloomy. It was clear that she wasn't in a good mood, but she wasn't afraid. Zhang Yingying shrugged her shoulders at Luo Nan. Actually, if you feel that there's a problem with this sister, you should control her in the first instance. While you and her are talking in riddles, the information that needs to be spread has long since been spread. Bamboo Pole laughed. Then there's no harm in making a guess. Is this sister's companion already on the way to rescue her? Or is she planning to cut off her tail like a lizard and begin a mass retreat? The white-shirt woman remained silent in the face of the continuous pressure. Luo Nan shook his head in his mind. He had been indulging the white-shirt woman's reaction all this time, hoping that she would do something. He had never relaxed his monitoring of the mental turbid flow in the surrounding area during the confrontation. But he didn't discover any emotional fluctuations like Huang Bingzhen's, which were clearly hostile towards him. There were a few possibilities from his logic. First, this woman simply hadn't released any information. She was a lone wolf type of character. But if this was true, then what was going on with the 13,000 patients who were suspected to be second-stage infected? Second, the white-shirt woman's contact wasn't in Cloud City Water Village. She wasn't even in Xia City. She wasn't in the area that he paid close attention to. No matter how powerful his mental senses were, it was impossible for him to reach the entire world. But in that case, what was the difference between him and a lone wolf? Then there was another possibility. Just like the white-shirt woman's current calm and indifferent expression, the other party had made some preparations or contingency plans for this sort of accident. Moreover, her main target wasn't Luo Nan's body. The corresponding emotional fluctuations were extremely minute, submerged within the normal fluctuations of the turbid flow of the human heart. This was Luo Nan's logic and reasoning. Even he didn't know if his reasoning was rigorous or not. Luo Nan was planning to ponder over the details a step further when Bamboo Pole reminded him through the mission channel, "Boss, there's something you need to pay attention to." The question about the smell is very strange. Even if your guess is correct, there's still one thing. How can an ordinary person make the medicine with his bare hands and control the flow of the odor molecules at will? Oh, yes, she doesn't have the smell of leaf on her. Also, although it sounds a little boring, we'd better pay attention to it. Putting aside superficial factors like skin color and just talking about gender, it doesn't seem appropriate to explain the male physical characteristics that Miss Xu Yi and even Huang Bingjin didn't suspect at all by using illusions. Indeed. Then, this ability to stretch and shrink, to have and not have, is it some kind of bionic prosthesis? Perhaps it's some kind of high-precision instrument? If this is the case, the possibility of it being implanted in the body is very high. The location is also limited. Bamboo Pole raised his own conjecture. "Boss, can your mental senses see through things? If necessary, clothes can. But skin and organs can't be implanted." Octopus had been peeking at the screen from afar. He couldn't help but let out a gasp of surprise at this time. As for Zhang Yingying, she typed out a string of ellipses, leaving out a large amount of emotional details. Luo Nan wasn't led astray. He discussed very seriously, if it's a precision instrument implanted in the body, then it would be more appropriate to take her to do an in-depth examination. It's much better than us making wild guesses. Luo Nan's gaze swept over the white-shirted woman's body as they conversed in the mission channel. This was because she was a typical ordinary person. There were no traces of supernatural powers on her body at all. It could be said that her entire body was full of flaws. But if one were to think about it in a more complicated way, being full of flaws meant that there were no flaws at all. It was very easy to control her, but to suddenly transform into a human bomb and destroy everything indiscriminately wasn't impossible. Luo Nan's train of thought was still a bit off track. He restrained himself with great effort and put forward a more constructive suggestion. If it's a normal person and an instrument, then the control method is worth pondering over. I've been researching a few topics related to mechanical control recently. If we want to maintain stability and accuracy, then the control methods will inevitably be limited. For the sake of safety, we can start from here and clean up any possible control devices. That's a body search then. A search is fine. Let me do it. Luo Nan's words had just left his mouth, but he was stopped by Qin Yikuan's hand before he could even move. "Mr. Luo, let us do it." Zhang Yingying was still brooding over the words "clothes are fine." She immediately gave him a supercilious look. "You even want to get close to this kind of old woman?" Luo Nan was quite helpless. Actually, there was no one more suitable than him here. This was because he didn't need to make a move at all. He didn't explain either. He just closed his eyes and then opened them. His eyes were like a bolt of lightning, piercing straight towards the target in front of him. Hiss! Zhang Yingying's eyes were scorched. This was Luo Nan's method of utilizing the heart lantern of the eye's orifice. He stimulated the external neuron within his brain. Aside from the shock on the mental plane, the most important thing was the information stream and the corresponding interference effect. The electronic wristband on the white-shirted woman's wrist automatically unlocked with a click. It fell to the ground. At the same time, all the electronic devices on her body met a similar fate. It was the same as being completely disarmed. This was the effect of the external neuron. Luo Nan had paralyzed the club's protective robots using this method. This was absolutely a high-level application. It didn't require physical contact. It could control most information products in the form of information flow and interference waves. It was impossible for Luo Nan to do this before he obtained the Virtual Brain System's user manual. It wasn't easy to do it now. The burden of using the fleshly body to form and strengthen interference waves was quite heavy. Luo Nan had once thought of using it to deal with the Deep Blue Walker, but he came to a conclusion after doing a few experiments. This was an instantaneous explosive effect. It could barely be used as a humanoid EMP. At best, its directivity was stronger. If Luo Nan wanted to rely on it to paralyze the Deep Blue Walker, who was intimately connected to the burner's body and soul structure, the instantaneous energy consumption would need to be 100 times stronger. At that time, Luo Nan would be roasted to a crisp. The white-shirted woman was clearly startled. She subconsciously shrunk back, adopting a defensive and evasive posture. From this reaction, it could be seen that she didn't even possess the basic common sense of combat. The other people present were all examining the white-shirted woman's reactions and movements. They all had their own guesses, but they didn't have any real meaning. The conclusion of the discussion in the mission channel was that a full-body examination was more reliable. Even Qin Ikuan and God expressed their opinions during this time, but Luo Nan never said anything from beginning to end. On one hand, he needed to control the direction of the information flow and interference waves to ensure the relevant effects. On the other hand, and more importantly, he clearly received a weak but incomparably real feedback when the interference waves probed a certain point within the white-shirted woman's body. Oh. The feedback information was very special and very direct. The external neuron, which had just emitted the information flow and interference waves, received this information in the first instance and responded. The virtual brain system automatically opened, and the intuitive UI lit up. Of the two systems that revolved around the virtual brain system, the flying ship in outer space that hadn't had any response all this time, which was the application of collective power. Right now, there was still no response. A new element appeared at the edge of the exoskeleton system, which represented the individual development system. Its specific shape was still extremely blurry. It looked like a mass of endlessly expanding and contracting glowing mist. The sense of rhythm was quite clear, but nothing else could be seen apart from this. The virtual brain system's analysis of the new element immediately began following its appearance. Its speed was quite fast. Luo Nan had just paid attention to it when it jumped to 1%, and the rate of progress continued to climb steadily. Sure enough, there was something. Luo Nan quickly raised his eyelids. His gaze cut across the white-shirted woman's lower abdomen before landing on her face. Her expression didn't change much, but there were some ripples in her emotions. He didn't size her up too much. He just compared it to his past experience. The rate of analysis was quite fast. It was almost catching up to Jin Tong's Soul Light Seed. Right now, the one with the slowest rate of analysis on the exoskeleton system was naturally the first level. It was a sheet of gray. There was no progress to speak of at all. The next level was the Blood Soul Temple, which was relatively normal. Not only had the rate of analysis broken through 20%, but the rate of analysis of Mo Luen and the Mush-Mouth Ape had also reached 35%. The vast majority of the rate of analysis of these three came from Luo Nan's earnest study of configuration theory. As for the final element on the third level alongside Mo Luen and the Mush-Mouth Ape, Jin Tong's Soul Light Seed, its rate of progress was like a bug from the start. The analysis had been completed long ago. Luo Nan had even carried out a series of preparatory work with the divine binding hoop and the creation of the exoskeleton. Aside from the support of the divine binding hoop and the creation of the exoskeleton, Luo Nan had previously reserved Gong Qi's body. He hoped to use Jin Tong's Soul Light Seed as a foundation to transform the fleshly body strength of an extraordinary for his own use. However, this plan was delayed due to the unexpected discovery of the misty labyrinth of the cloud world. The relevant preparatory work came to a standstill. In any case, Luo Nan's previous successful experience gave him confidence in analyzing the special object within the white-shirted woman's body. Chapter 660. Is this what you mean by, "It doesn't belong to me yet"? Luo Nan attempted to analyze the newly captured elements of the virtual brain system. After all, this was the first time he had seen an object that did not belong to him. He had never thought about it before. Just what kind of object would appear in the virtual brain system? In any case, the key was not ownership. It had been proven that a little contact was enough. This kind of anchoring and steadily advancing analysis from a distance gave people enough confidence that what came next would most likely still be mine. Let's just treat it as a detector for now. At the very least, it can find clues related to the external neuron and the mysterious civilization. Huh. A break suddenly appeared in Luo Nan's continuous stream of consciousness. This was due to the stimulation of a certain minute change. As his thoughts jumped, a certain interface automatically opened at the corresponding stimulation point and was displayed at the forefront. This was an intuitive window interface. Its core view area displayed the new elements in the process of analysis. The light that expanded and contracted was no different from the main plane of the virtual brain. As for the top section of the window, the options were arranged orderly to the side. All of them were alien characters that Luo Nan was still unable to grasp. As for the specific content, he still needed to rely on the secret text of the word, I, that he visualized and painstakingly sense and translate it. However, Luo Nan was already very familiar with the higher planes. That was the assembly diagram interface automatically presented by the virtual brain system after analyzing Jean Tong's spiritual light seed. At first glance, it looked like the equipment bar of a game. But there were a huge amount of assembly blueprints inside, as well as precise algorithmic functions. These were the objects that Luo Nan studied and consulted during this period of time. It was by relying on this set of databases that Luo Nan had the guts and foundation to forge an exoskeleton equipment that matched Jean Tong's extraordinary power of electromagnetism. Luo Nan obtained a certain amount of progress. But now, this database, and of course, Jean Tong's spiritual light seed, had suddenly joined the fray. Was it a coincidence? Of course not. The precise feedback of the virtual brain system reminded Luo Nan to pay attention to the close and direct connection in the first instance. Luo Nan could only give a rough translation of the new interface due to the fact that the time and place weren't suitable. This was clearly a control window. Most of the options on it were things like embedding, finalizing, modifying, and so on. It seemed that the operation mode was more complicated and detailed than the interface of the assembly drawing. Oh, there was a change. Luo Nan was shocked to discover that a completely new progress bar had appeared in the middle of the interface when he returned to the higher level interface. When translated, the meaning of the prompt was roughly, loading new module. Holy sh*t, this new element really is closely related to the virtual brain system, or at least the Golden Tree spiritual light seed. It could be seen that every time the virtual brain system's analysis of the element went up by a few points, the progress bar on the interface of the equipment diagram would change accordingly. Looking at the current situation, it was almost simultaneous. What else was there to doubt? Luo Nan took a deep breath and did his best to regulate his state of mind. Of course, he would not miss this opportunity. Any element that could enrich the virtual brain system was an important piece of the puzzle for him to decipher the mysteries of the external neuron. Perhaps, as long as he could decipher the external neuron, the origins of the mysterious civilization, the past of his grandfather and parents, the reason for their separation. Everything would be presented before his eyes. At this moment, Luo Nan was determined to obtain the mysterious object hidden within the body of the white-shirted woman. He thought, I'm sorry. If this thing is mine, then it's mine. If it's not mine, then it must be mine. He glanced at the woman in the white shirt. She still maintained her gloomy and indifferent appearance, but her vigilance was much higher than before she was disarmed. It was impossible to tell whether or not she was aware of Luo Nan's detection. But as long as she was vigilant in this aspect, she might play some tricks. After all, the mysterious object did not belong to Luo Nan right now. It was not under his control. This sort of strange object, which could be listed in the virtual brain system, might have some inconceivable effect. If the woman really did have the heart to perish indiscriminately, then she would be much more terrifying than a human bomb. That was not the result Luo Nan hoped for. He just hoped that after the analysis was complete, he would be able to truly capture the new element and make it his own. Right now, the analysis was progressing steadily and slowly. As long as he maintained his current situation and waited for the analysis to be completed smoothly, he would be able to see through the root of the mysterious object. Then he would be able to grasp the absolute initiative, and he would be able to conveniently uncover the greatest secret of the white-shirted woman. It's just that I was too impulsive in the beginning. Luo Nan discovered that the white-shirt woman was definitely many times more sensitive than she was in the beginning due to him showing off his abilities in the beginning. Then, he couldn't just stare at this woman until the results of the analysis came out, right? Looking at the progress and relying on his experience, he would need half an hour to 40 minutes to complete the relevant analysis without a hitch. If he stumbled a bit, the time would be extended. If he kept scheming against the woman during this period of time, there would be more uncontrollable factors. While Luo Nan was pondering, the others weren't idle either. Bamboo Pole raised a new suggestion. He didn't even use the mission channel. He just spoke directly, clearly putting pressure on the white-shirt woman. Maybe we can consider luring the snake out of its hole. If this woman is closely related to the clubhouse incident, then the possibility of her acting alone is too low. Then she must be a key character. What Zhang Yingying was implying was that putting a non-ability user at a critical juncture wasn't convincing enough. Let's just give it a try. Tonight is a chaotic dance of demons. What if we beat the grass and startle the snake? There's nothing wrong with letting the other person's boots fall to the ground. Bamboo Pole's response seeped with calmness and cruelty. In a certain sense, he continued his positive judgment of the higher-ups of the branch and even Luo Nan's ability to control the situation. Perhaps it will be chaotic, but it won't be chaotic forever. We can even seize back the initiative earlier. Bamboo Pole and Zhang Yingying watched the changes in the white-shirt woman's expression as they spoke, but they still couldn't find anything meaningful. Zhang Yingying discovered that Luo Nan's silence was a bit long. She was just about to ask when a buzzing sound rang out. Luo Nan's wristband vibrated. There was a call coming in. Luo Nan subconsciously leaned back when he saw the caller ID. He had successfully stood his entire family up, and he had successfully provoked the Empress Dowager. The problem was that now wasn't the time to explain. Hey, hold on. A light flickered in Luo Nan's mind, illuminating a rather clear vein. Perhaps the mark was a bit heavy, but from Luo Nan's perspective, this was already the most suitable choice. When the wristband vibrated a second time, Luo Nan grinned and pointed at the white-shirt woman. You'll have to consult Sister Yueyin and the others about the specifics. First, detain this person. Go through the examination and go through the apparatus. Also, let Sister Shuei do the examination first. The sooner she does it, the sooner she can return. She needs to give my sister and brother Haijing an explanation. Huh? Zhang Yingying instinctively felt that something was wrong. Bamboo Pole shrugged and agreed first. This isn't a problem, then that's good. Luo Nan waved his hand the moment he received a response. He accepted the call as he walked quickly in the direction of the emergency exit. Zhang Yingying was shocked. What are you doing? Luo Nan didn't even turn his head. I stood my aunt up. She must be extremely angry. I need to deal with her first. Chinikuan and Gauda only reacted at this time. They glanced at each other and swept their eyes over the suspect. They both smiled wryly, but they could only let her go for now. They followed with their heads lowered. Just one person will be fine. Luo Nan was really worried that the white-shirt woman would use that mysterious object to suddenly erupt with fierce methods. He instructed in a hurry. He felt regret after speaking. His acting skills made him blush. He absolutely couldn't reveal any flaws because of this. Luo Nan, are you listening? Ah. I'm here. Report your location. I'm backstage right here. I'm going out right now. I just ran into Brother Haijing and we chatted a bit. Yes. I also listened to Mo Ya's song backstage. It's pretty good. Really? Thin beads of sweat seeped out of Luo Nan's forehead in a short 2 or 3 seconds. What new elements? What awkward acting skills? They were all tossed far beyond the 9 heavens for a time. The shift in focus of his emotions and consciousness was that simple. Luo Nan didn't feel that there was anything wrong with this because he had long since gotten used to it. The group of people looked at each other in dismay as they watched Luo Nan's panicked and sorry figure turn a corner at the end of the corridor like a wisp of smoke. He has multiple personalities, right? Zhang Yingying finally couldn't hold back from ridiculing him. She was completely unaware that her nonsensical words had already suppressed a bit of the correct answer. The white-shirted woman was quite surprised by the situation before her eyes. She could feel the sudden tearing of the atmosphere and logic, but she couldn't see any signs of a conspiracy from the changes in the expressions of Zhang Yingying and the others. She was sluggish for a few seconds before she subconsciously let out a sigh of relief. She controlled this change in emotions very well. It was very hard to see it with the naked eye. However, it was this emotion that was finally reflected in the turbid flow of the hearts of the people in this area. It was grasped by Luo Nan, who had left in a hurry. Luo Nan let out a sigh of relief just as he hung up the call. This was his common reaction to the situation on both sides. It was quite difficult to control one's emotions from tense to relaxed, but he was able to seamlessly switch between them. He maintained a minimal level of interference wave influence on the white-shirted woman as he quickly distanced himself from her. He ensured that the analysis progress of the virtual brain continued. Reality proved that there were no problems with his methods. Luo Nan returned to the darkness after turning a corner in the corridor. Now he could use even more methods to probe and detect without raising the vigilance of his opponent. Chapter 661. The power of spacetime was vast and ordinary. The only difference was that the height was lowered by 350 meters and the time was pushed back by half an hour. Under the effect of the spacetime power, the noise and disturbance in the backstage of the theater were no longer meaningful, like a farce in a snail's horn. Currently, as an important suspect, the woman in the white shirt was placed in the police interrogation room on the first floor of Aurora Cloud City. The traces of the battle between Tian Bang and Mo Luan a month ago could be vaguely seen on the walls of the interrogation room that were painted in different colors. Bamboo Pole stopped in his tracks to watch with interest. The level of his mental senses had increased by a large margin after he became a B-rank mental user. His range and level of perception were far inferior to professionals like Luo Nan and Cat Eyes, but he had quite the advantage in analyzing properties. The structure of the building could be repaired in various ways, but the traces of various powers left in the damaged areas, including the soul power imprints of experts, could always be preserved. If one were to analyze it carefully, they would be able to discover some very interesting details. Of course, all of this was built on a foundation of rich and comprehensive knowledge, and it was closely related to his own cultivation level. Regardless of whether it was Tian Bang or Mo Luan, their levels of power were far above his. Moreover, a long time had passed, so he could only look at them with a vague understanding and a vague understanding. For the time being, it could be considered as killing time. Hey, you're so free here. You want me to act like a nurse and bring people around for physical examinations? Zhang Yingying's voice came closer. Bamboo Pole shrugged. You should be content to be an angel in white. Do you think I'm idle? The more I see, the more I want to pull my own out and wash it twice. Zhang Yingying understood. There's a reaction outside? Yeah, I wouldn't have known if I hadn't seen it, but I was shocked when I saw it. That lady in the white shirt, oh, now I know her surname, Ms. Li Wei. She's really popular. We just got rid of the grass stalk, and all the city councilors, famous professors, and fund directors came to question us. So cooperative? Wait. Zhang Yingying's eyes widened. Are they crazy? How dare you jump out at this kind of thing? What's the big deal? Ms. Li Wei is the research team leader of a famous laboratory under the banner of the Rainbow Fund. She has recently come to Xia City to discuss a scientific research project with the relevant parties. It is a standard collaboration between industry and research. She is very confident. Rainbow Fund? Isn't it Quantum Holdings Investment Fund in the Far East? That's right. That's really worth paying attention to. As for that woman, a researcher? Zhang Yingying recalled the appearance of the woman in the white shirt. Oh, now it was Ms. Li Wei. This Madame Li was quiet and gloomy. She was almost indifferent to the changes in the outside world, which was quite fitting for her profession. Sometimes, Luo Nan was like this. Ugh, she thought too much. She was almost led astray by the silly information provided by Bamboo Pole. Don't say such nonsense. What I'm asking is, are these people crazy? How could they force their way into matters related to the mutation infection? Idiot, oh no, warrior. Now we can directly capture them and interrogate them, right? Unfortunately, not for the time being. Because you overestimate them. Bamboo Pole knocked on the wall, making a doo-doo sound. His next words were sent through the mission channel on the psychic wave network. I also just found out. Speaking of which, when Secretary he reported the infection situation, he hid the suspected cases that were not supported by concrete evidence. Zhang Yingying's eyelashes fluttered. She switched the chat platform to the mission channel as well. What do you mean by suspected cases that were not supported by concrete evidence? Basically, anything outside the range of the large living area doesn't count. Therefore, aside from us and the few of us, the other people who know of the situation know that the number of people infected in the second stage is 22. Yes. Don't be surprised. This is what Secretary he did. Quantitative change brings qualitative change. Subtracting a sufficient amount of quantity, the degree of the situation will naturally give some people the misconception that this doesn't count for much. Then someone will jump out and provide us with new clues and angles. It's a very simple technique. As long as you can keep your mouth shut. Perhaps this is what it means to be a person who accomplishes great things without scheming against the masses. Zhang Yingying stared blankly for a few seconds. She even forgot to use the psychic wave network. Which side does she stand on in the end? Which side do you think she stands on? I've always thought that she was the coordinator of the Star Alliance Committee and the Society, as well as the spokesperson of the burners in the Society. Zhang Yingying answered boldly, but she quickly lowered her voice. I also know that some people think that she's a nail wedged in by the government and the military, a vanguard pushing for the Society to become official. In any case, I've never thought of it that way. But I also didn't think that she could hide this information and deal with officials so ruthlessly. I, on the other hand, think that she's made her stand clear long ago. But it's still too early to say that she's ruthless. The real proof will have to wait until public opinion takes shape and the officials determine the situation. If everything is calm, these people who jump out will only reveal some clues to me and nothing else. Tens of thousands of suspected cases. How can it be so calm in such a situation? Yes, that's a good question. Bamboo Pole smiled. But before he could elaborate further, the door to the investigation room opposite the interrogation room opened. A middle-aged man in casual clothes walked out with a laugh. In short, from our point of view, it's still a personal grudge. It's the new year, and this kind of thing can be completely mediated. There's no need to shout about violence and even detain people. Of course, we respect the opinions of professionals. As long as there's clear evidence, logic is fine. Right, Lawyer Zhu? Some people played the good cop, while others played the bad cop. Lawyer Zhu, who was called out, followed behind. In fact, we still can't understand your logic. Forgive me for emphasizing it again, but your side, especially that Mr. Luo, is completely confused. The chain of logic is broken. Behind him was a certain innocent police officer. His face was full of MMP, but in the end, it turned into a face of business as usual, and he sent the guests off without any interest. What Zhang Yingying noticed was a familiar aura in the investigation room. Although the other party didn't show up, she still made a judgment. Wow, Secretary, he came personally? A direct confrontation? Aha. Then why are you still talking about her? I'm here to accompany you, beautiful. Zhang Yingying curled her lips. And on the other side, Lawyer Zhu was very immersed in his role, Or perhaps it could be said that he was very professional. He still tried his best to shout into the room that Mr. Luo's logic is completely untenable. No legal system will accept the fantasies of a minor. He can't explain the connection between a suspected infected person and a terrorist attacker. He can't even explain the difference between a grown man and a woman. Zhang Yingying's gaze swept over the two fellows in the corridor who had taken the initiative to jump into the pit. Who are these people? The Rainbow Fund's executives and lawyers. Currently, their reactions are the most intense. It seems quite reasonable, but there's still room to dig for clues. So that's how it is. But frankly speaking, I really want to give this Mr. Lawyer a thumbs up. Cough, should I say it in front of Boss Luo? I'll say it as it is. Beautiful, the boss is a psychic that you personally dug out. Dreaming and whatnot is within the scope of your profession, okay? Then other than dreaming, are there other channels of information? Zhang Yingying's occupational disease flared up, and she spoke without thinking. But Bamboo Pole responded very seriously, if there is, then it must be a talent exclusive to the thieving heavenly fire hero. TSK. Zhang Yingying looked Bamboo Pole up and down. Boss Luo isn't in front of me, and I didn't see the light of talent. I only saw a fanatic who was burning with impatience to help him preach. Bamboo Pole laughed loudly. You praise Her Majesty Empress Wu, and I praise Big Boss Luo. That's only fair. What logic? The two of them chatted casually, causing the two people from the Rainbow Fund to raise their eyebrows. They were also a bit embarrassed. After saying a few more pleasantries, they turned around and left. Zhang Yingying made a sound. I remember that the person in charge of the Rainbow Fund is Yan Yongbua, the boss's great enemy, right? That's right, but he's still on duty or on vacation. Bamboo Pole said it casually, but Zhang Yingying's thoughts jumped. She thought of another person whose fate was quite similar to Yan Yongbua's, and she subconsciously gritted her teeth. That black-hearted salt, looking for trouble when there's nothing to do. What kind of intentions does he have? Her mind wandered, and she didn't see He Yuan come out of the investigation room. Instead, the latter directly walked over and asked, there should be results from the surveillance analysis and secretion extraction. Oh, there is. It's not bad. Zhang Yingying always had a bit of a prejudice against He Yuan. It was impossible for her to respond like a subordinate. She immediately changed the topic. Boss Luo didn't come? Let's get the two of us together and talk together. Speaking of which, he couldn't have his ear torn off by his family and is busy looking for someone to stitch it up, right? Bamboo Pole laughed. He's been here for almost 20 minutes. Huh? Where's he? He found a small room as soon as he arrived and locked himself up. I don't know what he's up to. Maybe it's some sort of dreamlike logical chain of thought. The kind that can kill a person. The single room located in the corner of the police station was originally the office of the chief of the police station. It could be considered a quiet place amidst the hustle and bustle. Luo Nan was temporarily commandeered by Luo Nan. He didn't do anything else, he just wanted some peace and quiet. Luo Nan sat behind the office desk of the chief. It looked like he was staring blankly at the air, but in reality, he was seriously staring at the virtual brain interface. He didn't miss a single detail of the graphics and words. He did his utmost to use the mysterious I symbol to translate and understand the meaning within. 40 minutes had already passed, and the virtual brain system's analysis of the new element came to a calm and smooth conclusion. There weren't any twists and turns at all. It seemed that even the secret itself was impatient to reveal its true face to Luo Nan. The most obvious change was in the layout of the interface. The analysis of the new element had just been completed. It was just as Luo Nan expected. It was an extraterrestrial visitor who had just been captured and had yet to be completely subdued. It had completely transformed into an official member of the virtual brain system's exoskeleton system. Its position within the system had stabilized. Chapter 662. Following the progress of the analysis, the appearance of the new element became clear. From the outside, it looked like an object that gave off an artificial feeling. Its diameter was approximately 2 to 3 centimeters. Its shape was round at the bottom and pointed at the top. It was like a biological heart, and its texture was closer to that of flesh and blood. It was connected to the host's blood vessels and nerves, and it pulsed rhythmically. Luo Nan was very curious about one thing. How could this new element be mentioned in the same breath as the wraith sign? Or perhaps it was just the disparity in nature that led to this phenomenon? After some serious thought, Luo Nan felt that the latter possibility was a bit higher. The chaotic and arrogant wraith sign was still resolutely resisting the analysis and detection of the virtual brain system, maintaining a stubborn ash-gray color. In comparison, the new element was much more obedient. Oh, right. This new element even took the initiative to reveal its true name. According to Luo Nan's interpretation, it was actually an instrument recorded in the virtual brain system's database. It was just like the divine binding hoop in Luo Nan's hand. This instrument and equipment was recorded in the virtual brain system as Night-Level Basic Colonization Biochemical Reactor. Then there was the system's remark: the cultivation room has already been filled with XXX all-round stem cells. XXX type culture medium has been set up. The current basic formula is 100% complete. It has been used. The advanced formula is 17% complete. It has not been used. The extraterrestrial words found in the virtual brain system were all translated through the mysterious I symbol through a kind of marvelous translation. All of this was built upon the foundation of Luo Nan's own comprehension ability. There were some words like the XXX above that described concepts that Luo Nan had never known before. There was no room for guessing the translation. Actually, Luo Nan's luck was pretty good today. The system of knowledge related to this biochemical reactor was still within the scope of Luo Nan's abilities. At the very least, he had done many years of experiments following his grandfather's notes. He had some basic concepts of neurobiology, biochemistry, and cell biology. He had a general understanding of the main body of meaning. There were only some descriptions, specific versions, and natures that he was unable to translate. It was because he understood that he felt a bit odd. Fully functional stem cell cultivation? Is there a need to go through all this trouble? According to Luo Nan's knowledge, stem cell cultivation was indeed a fundamental and important part of bioengineering. Especially all-round stem cells. They possessed the ability to self-renew and differentiate into all the tissues of an organism. In theory, a cell could develop into a complete person. The most typical example was a fertilized egg. Therefore, it had great significance in the life sciences. It had always been a key area of research and expansion. It could practically be seen throughout the history of biological science since the present era, and it would continue to extend in the foreseeable future. However, with the current technological level of Earth, it was not a high-end task to carry out the cultivation of fully functional stem cells. The real problem was the ethical substitution products of embryonic stem cells and the corresponding clinical applications. The true problem lay in the ethical substitutes of embryonic embryos and the related of embryonic embryos and the corresponding embryonic embryos. This was especially so for the white shirt. Oh, he was now called Li Wei. He was an adult woman. Once the fertilized egg was placed in the uterus, it would be a perfect environment that even the most sophisticated equipment could not produce. If it was purely for cultivation, why would there be a need to play around with petri dishes, culture medium? That would be surrogacy. Also, this biochemical reactor was implanted in Li Wei's uterus. Of course, it wasn't a fertilized egg, but more like a uterine fibroid. Most of the furnace was embedded in the inner wall of the uterus, and because Li Wei did have a common disease, uterine leiomyoma, normal tumors formed an excellent cover for the biochemical reactor. Therefore, the previous instrument tests did not find any abnormalities. Luo Nan swept his eyes over a series of test materials. Among them were 2 sets of medium formulas related to cell cultivation. Luo Nan looked at the relevant components of the basic formula that he had already used. He was quite familiar with it. Luo Nan even used the psychic wave network to search for it. Sure enough, there wasn't much of a difference between the current technology on Earth. It was suitable for the cultivation and research of stem cells. It's really a petri dish? Alien technology should have some advanced functions, right? Luo Nan frowned as he operated within the interface of the reactor. He looked at the simple and crude functional interface, finding it hard to understand for a time. Oh, wait a minute, there seems to be another place. Luo Nan's mind stirred slightly. His thoughts opened up another system, the assembly interface of the Jintong Spirit Light Seed. As expected, the new module that had been loaded before was also loaded as the analysis was completed. The situation here, Luo Nan narrowed his eyes in the next second. Luo Nan was unable to directly pry into the internal structure of the biochemical reactor due to the limitations of his sensing precision. He could only use interference waves to realize a link with the device and then use the virtual brain system to control it. The so-called control was just reading the device's information and grasping the relevant privileges of the device. That was all. After all, he did not possess complete ownership and control over the biochemical reactor before he fished it out from Li Yue's uterus. Luo Nan accepted this reality, but the premise for all of this was that he received complete information and had the highest privileges. But what's going on here? The assembly interface of the Jintong Spirit Light Seed was a window to the enormous database of the virtual brain system. What Luo Nan browsed through here was not some real-time information, but a series of original information stored in the database. Since the virtual brain system had already given a name to the new element, this proved that the equipment, the night-level basic colonization biochemical reactor, existed in the database. Reality was like this. When Luo Nan opened up the relevant interface, a series of blueprints and data information appeared in succession without any reservation. This is the same type of equipment. Are you bullying me because I can't understand the blueprints? Luo Nan had been using the Jintong Spirit Light Seed more efficiently during this time. Other than duplicating the exoskeleton equipment, Luo Nan had taken time out to study the basic knowledge of mechanical design from worker Zhai. Due to the short amount of time, Luo Nan still lacked the ability to work independently in the relevant fields. He only had professional insight, which was tempered by the massive amount of assembly blueprints and data in the virtual brain system under the catalysis of configuration thinking. Because of this, he immediately discovered an enormous difference when he looked at the blueprints and the actual demonstration blueprints. To be honest, anyone who saw the series of functional divisions that included the energy core, the cultivation area, the differentiation area, the modification area, the external docking station, the remote control area, and so on. It was like a top-notch city had been carved out of a date stone. Then they looked at the pitiful little petri dish structure on the other side. They would have huge suspicions. If the blueprints weren't wrong, then... Warning, XXX pluripotent stem cells are undergoing uncontrolled differentiation. No inhibitors have been detected. Physical intervention has failed. Immediate activation of the destruction sequence is recommended. Warning, the equipment is 9% complete. It no longer possesses the ability to self-destruct. There is a risk of biochemical contamination. Risk assessment, moderate. Chapter 663. A series of warning pop-up windows and an even more detailed system explanation showed that the virtual brain system had finally discovered a conflict between the real object and the database during the data matching process. Next, the virtual brain system began a series of even more detailed comparisons. It used the interference waves emitted by Luo Nan to make a deeper judgment of the so-called parasitic mutant. Luo Nan was unable to grasp the operating logic of the virtual brain system in a short amount of time. He could only stare at the system's repeated updates of the alien language, looking and guessing in a half-understanding manner. His train of thought inevitably drifted a bit during this period of time. He was wondering if Li Yue knew about the unforeseen event in the biochemical reactor. Did she know that the cultivated XXX-type pluripotent stem cells had already encountered uncontrolled differentiation, becoming a parasitic mutant? Well, if Luo Nan were to think further back, did Li Wei know that she was a host? If she didn't know, then it would be quite interesting. Luo Nan could completely use this to break through the defenses of her heart and obtain even deeper information. Luo Nan felt a bit like a schemer as these thoughts ran through his mind. However, the distance between talent and thinking made it hard for him to continue on this path for a long period of time. Soon, the virtual brain system's calculation results attracted all of his attention. The virtual brain system displayed a high level of intelligent computing ability. It sorted out the information transmitted back by the interference wave probe and completed the synchronization model of the biochemical reactor. At the same time, it formed another set of theoretical models based on the stored data. The two models were synchronized, and the enormous difference was displayed more directly. The complete night-level basic implantation biochemical reactor was powered by a miniature energy core that consumed special high-energy fuel. It was a military equipment that integrated the cultivation, differentiation, and modification of pluripotent stem cells. It was capable of repairing and remodeling the body's organs, undergoing temporary biochemical modifications, and extreme feigned death to survive. It was a production line that used pluripotent stem cells as a base material to undergo a series of proliferation, modification, and processing. However, the biochemical reactor presented by the synchronization model of the equipment had become an abandoned warehouse that only retained a single cultivation function. No, it was possible that even the cultivation function had been lost. The energy core was gone. Aside from the breeding room, all the functional areas were gone. What replaced it was a mass of flesh and blood densely covered in blood vessels and nerves. The rhythmic pulsation of the relevant areas represented its internal life force. Luo Nan could only gather information up to this point. No matter how miraculous the external neuron was, it was impossible for it to control the real-time situation when the equipment was completely damaged. Therefore, Luo Nan was still in the dark when it came to the abilities and threats of the parasitic mutant. Luo Nan had two more questions that needed to be answered aside from the specific circumstances of the parasitic mutant. Firstly, why did the abandoned biochemical reactor still attract the attention and strong reaction of the virtual brain system, especially the spiritual light seed of Jin Tong? The reason he could think of was probably a misunderstanding, caused by the target's actual situation not matching the database in time. However, the current situation was that Jin Tong's spiritual light seed seemed to be quite active and highly sensitive to the biochemical reactor over there. The combination and reaction of the relevant systems still have to be based on the material plane. Perhaps he should let the two of them have actual contact. It just so happened that the material structure of the Blood Soul Temple in the volcanic area was not very satisfactory, and the energy absorption of the aura seed had stagnated. It would not be a problem to temporarily move it back to do an experiment. As for Li Wei, if he wanted to extract it, it would involve the second problem. Was the situation with the biochemical reactor an accident for Li Wei? Or was it an established program? Such a precise biochemical reactor had already been destroyed to this degree. Even its most basic energy core had been swallowed up. Why was the breeding room left behind? Why was it allowed to operate normally? Luo Nan could see the real-time situation of the breeding room from the relevant information detected by the virtual brain system. This was the only area he could grasp. According to the information, there were no so-called type XXX fully functional stem cells within the breeding room. It was completely empty. What was truly operating was actually the retention warehouse, which was used to preserve raw materials for the creation of cell culture media. Even though the biochemical reactor's energy core had been destroyed and it had completely turned into a parasitic state, needing to absorb energy and nutrients from the outside world without end, this place was still intermittently and selectively absorbing and extracting various material components that were completely different from the energy and nutrients. These material components were neatly and clearly piled up in the advanced formula area of the retention warehouse. The degree of rigor was simply like that of ants storing food for the winter. Luo Nan observed the list extracted from the equipment's records. Most of the contents were all sorts of strange organic compounds. There seemed to be genetic samples as well. There were some things that Luo Nan could not distinguish at all. They clearly exceeded the scope of Luo Nan's understanding. Even the secret text of Amit was powerless to do anything about them. I can only see that the biochemical reactor. No, I should say that the fellow residing in the remains of the biochemical reactor is still doing its best to collect the raw materials for the advanced formula. Maybe it wants to advance a second time. It's just that the progress is a bit slow. He flipped through the equipment's historical records and looked at a few key entries. The raw materials for the basic formula list only took a few minutes to gather and completely concoct. As for the advanced formula list, the first 10% was quite fast. But towards the end, the time needed to gather each raw material exceeded a week or more. Luo Nan made a rough calculation. When all the various time periods were added together, it actually exceeded 2 years. Currently, the advanced formula's completion rate was 17%. In other words, there was only 7% progress after 2 years, and it was getting slower and slower. If things continued at this pace, wouldn't it take 30 to 40 years before he had hope of gathering all the ingredients? Could it be that this advanced formula was a so-called immortal formula? Could it be that it required some 100-year-old, 1,000-year-old spirit medicine in order to be able to form a framework? What in the world were these raw materials that he couldn't even understand? The external neuron in Luo Nan's brain suddenly emitted electricity before he could finish his thought. Using the coupling method that Luo Nan was most comfortable with, the flow of information was applied to Luo Nan's subbrain, giving him an appropriate stimulation. Luo Nan's eyelids twitched slightly, and he immediately closed his eyes. It was at this moment that the character, Meath, flickered with a mysterious, invisible core. It was similar to the large coordinate system of the extraordinary domain. It drove the soul cloak that already covered the entire world to receive the flow of information transmitted by the external neuron. It was deciphered, transformed, sensed, and fed back. The soul cloak that covered the entire world simultaneously mapped the vast surface of at least 510 million square kilometers. These images converged together to form a flood of information that could make Luo Nan's head explode in an instant. So normally, Luo Nan absolutely wouldn't take the initiative to pay attention to them unless an extremely intense change occurred over there. But right now, Luo Nan's perception seemed to be plated with a layer of film on the mental sensing plane. Or perhaps some sort of filter effect was applied. This caused him to maintain a sluggish response to most information, but at the same time, his attention to certain special information increased. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Love Stories YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.